Hey, cool. Good to see you.
You too.
Good to see you too.
Thank you for joining. So, I guess we'll just get right into it. Are you ready for some questions for true grassroots supporters around?
I'm not hearing you.
Okay.
Let me see if my earplugs will work. Okay, now try. Oh, now I hear you, I think.
Ah, perfect.
There we go. How's that? Good?
Good. That's good.
Awesome. So we have a bunch of questions from all these grassroots supporters around Paul that are just dying to get a piece of your brain and pick your brain a little bit. The first question I have to ask is, we're all fighting for Tampa. We're all going down to Tampa. We're going to have Paul Festival in Tampa. There's going to be hundreds of thousands of us down there pledging for liberty and for the good doctor. And, the campaign's come out and kind of pretty much thrown in the towel and said that they don't think there's a chance that they can win. We don't really think that that's true. What are your thoughts?
First, let me get your names again so I can talk to you.
My name is Tracy Diaz.
Tracy, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Josh Tully, Doug.
And Josh, yeah, you've interviewed me before. Tracy and Josh, thanks a lot. And let me say before I discuss this with you, asking me questions implies I have the answers, and I don't, but I'm glad to share my thoughts on some of these questions and points of discussion, and I love reading the forums and learning from other people, so I offer my perspective with humility and respect to the field and to brighter minds than mine that are laboring for Ron Paul. But so the question is, why does it appear that the campaign has thrown in the towel for winning the nomination? If we can win it, I'm all for it. I would love to see us win it. I think when people in the field count the delegates, they may count them without including some of the primary battles. They're just large sections of the country that we didn't compete in because we didn't have the money to compete in them. And we've got some delegates there. They're called stealth delegates by some on the forums, but not the majority. And what happens in these conventions is once somebody has the majority, they can pretty much control it, usually. If Rick Santorum had not collapsed and Newt Gingrich had not collapsed, we were about to shock the world because we had far more delegates than they knew we had or ever dreamed we would have, and there would have indeed been a brokered convention. I warned about that very early because in American history that hasn't happened in recent years. It used to be the norm, but things happen at the speed of light today, and with the internet, convention by convention, cycle by cycle, it's going even faster. Just as in the stock market, when people anticipate what's going to happen over the next 30 days, that's already built into the stock market. By the time ordinary people like you and I get involved, the stock market's already reacted to what's going to happen next. Well, so with the delegates, we could anticipate where these delegations were likely to go based on what happened in the voting and at the precincts in those caucuses and the primary delegates. So I haven't given up. If somebody can help us find a way to win, I'm all for it. I would love it.
Do you think that Santorum and Gingrich dropped out purposefully to stop a brokered convention from happening?
Could be. Could have been a personal. What he said. Santorum said his daughter, was it, or son, one of his children that was ill, and for their sake, that's possible too. There are some things that happen in public life that we just don't know right away. I'm a historian, and I can tell you there are things we're learning about FDR right now that is just absolutely fascinating that nobody would have dreamed back in his day were going on. So there's a lot of things we don't know about the personal lives of some of these public figures and why they do what they do. But can it be conspiratorial? Hey, absolutely, it can. We're talking about money and power, and where there's money and power, nothing would surprise me.
So when we look at this election then, Doug, and we see something that's it's just systematically different than what we've seen in previous elections, where in previous elections both parties kind of followed that whole delegate process. They said, okay, well, this guy is obviously going to be the guy who has the most delegates, so let's just kind of get behind the candidate and roll forward. Obviously, this candidate is a lot different than that. I mean, we have delegates who refuse to roll over and play party politics. When this happens, what's then the campaign's approach to this? Because the delegates that you're having come on behalf of Ron Paul to Tampa, they're not going to get behind Mitt Romney. So that's obviously something different than in years past. What's your approach to that? And if there is that ability for you to gain delegates, considering Rule 40, Rule 38, and the national media's coverage of, legally nobody's really bound anyway, wouldn't there be a power play for your campaign then to make headway into that arena?
We're not going to announce what we're going to do in advance. If we had done that, we wouldn't, back when many people in the field wanted us to do it, we wouldn't be in the position we're in now. Some of the people in the field who are criticizing us because we aren't announcing what we're going to do right now are some of the same people who were criticizing us months ago when we first said we were going to concentrate on getting delegates instead of trying to win primaries. Winning primaries, we're up against companies that own television networks that give us 89 seconds in an hour televised debate. They give more time to their own anchors than they do to Dr. Paul. It's pretty stupid for us to try to compete in that arena. We needed $40–50 million to do it. So the campaign was very wise to garner its resource and concentrate on getting delegates. Obviously, we have a reason behind getting those delegates, and we're not going to announce it. Now, when you keep saying, Josh, you keep saying that this candidate is different, were you referring to Romney is different, and therefore the Ron Paul people don't want to buckle under, or that Ron Paul is different, and therefore the Ron Paul people don't want to give up?
What I'm saying is the Ron Paul candidacy is different than the Mitt Romney candidacy, or even if we went back to Bush and we went back to Reagan, Ron Paul has done something that's fairly unique. The reason we are here tonight is because people have kind of developed this awareness because of Ron Paul's positions over the past 30 years. So people who are aware of what the Constitution is supposed to be, what liberty is supposed to be, what freedom is supposed to be, they're just not going to get behind a candidate that is the antithesis of that. And the GOP, in my opinion, has made a huge mistake now realizing the wave they rode in 2010. But irregardless, we're in a position now where you have delegates that aren't going to just roll over and get behind the candidate, and you have a million plus voters who are not just going to roll over and get behind that candidate. So we're facing a unique position, and I understand you can't discuss strategy, but the fact that you said we're not going to announce what we're going to do implies that you're going to do something, which just made 289 people in this room very happy.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tracy.
No, I was going to say there's 290 because I'm really happy also.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's Ron Paul and there's the rest of them. I mean, once the lights go on, once you get a little picture of the monetary system and how it works, there's no going back. And once you have a little bit of that understanding, everything else you see on TV is just irrelevant. It's just stunning. It's just hours and hours and hours of debating this nuance or that nuance when the whole thing's heading for a crash. It's just ridiculous. Who cares about all these nuances when our whole future as a republic is at stake, when the U.S. Constitution is hanging by a thread? It's just absurd. I was at MSNBC and I was in the makeup room. The lady was doing my makeup and we got to discussing this, and on television, Obama came on television talking about some issue or other issue, and she looked at me and just rolled her eyes. Like, it's just hours and hours of television commentary that are totally irrelevant in light of the bigger issues, including the issue of our monetary system and how it's being run, how the money's being doled out to insiders. Seems like the left and the right, that discussion's gone. It died with the Cold War. There is no left or right. And that was positions that people took, the fear of communism. And so, yes, some people on the right would move left if it would get more votes to help them defeat communism. And communism, people on the left would be more tolerant and charitable towards communism if there were some ideas they had in common. That whole thing's gone. It's no longer left or right. Everybody's on the left, and it's no longer left or right. It's no longer up or down. It's not class warfare, rich against the poor. It's in or out. There's a percentage of insiders, and there's all the rest of us who are outsiders. And the outsiders are getting screwed. They have to pay taxes. The insiders don't have to pay taxes. The outsiders have nowhere to put their money. They can't put it in land. They can't put it in the stock market. There's nowhere to put it. The insiders can put it anywhere, and it'll prosper. They buy their stocks before they go on the stock exchange, or they buy them and then go in and vote to determine whether they go up or down. It's an insider-outsider game, and that's why a lot of these people on the Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street, a lot of us in the Liberty Movement had things in common with them. We could say there is a 1%. It's just that there's a little more to the story than the corporate cronyism. There's also the corruption of the monetary system.
So going forward here, obviously Tracy's going to have a question about going forward. We know how we've gotten to the place we've gotten. We know that this is a candidacy which has ridden a wave as opposed to played the political system. So Tracy, how do we move forward from here, right?
Yeah, I actually did have another question that was really popular. I do want to talk about moving forward. I think it's really, really important. What I wanted to go back to, and what you were just speaking about kind of lends itself to it, is, the insiders don't like this message of freedom and liberty very much because that threatens their ability to be inside, so to speak. So there's a lot of fraud and stuff like that, as far as delegates go. And there was actually a foundation made. It's called Lawyers for Ron Paul. And I'm wondering, because they came out saying that you were quoted in an article saying that, you were working with them, or I forget the exact quote. And then you came out and said, I was never, I didn't have this conversation. What is the campaign's affiliation, if any, with this group? Do you think that it's a good thing that they're doing, challenging, some sort of fraud or anything that happens as far as delegation goes? And do you know if this could hurt the Ron Paul campaign and their delegates moving forward, or if it's a help?
Well, my commitment is to Ron Paul, and I have great respect and love and sympathy and interest and a sense of camaraderie with everybody in the field that's doing their thing. But since my commitment is to Dr. Paul, Jesus said a house divided against itself can't stand. So Ron Paul has lawyers that he trusts, that he's known and worked with and vetted, and they advise him. And so my loyalty is to his campaign and to the movement, but to his campaign, because I don't know this other group.
So if there is this other group that's outside your campaign and you have your campaign lawyers advising you one way, yet there's another group of lawyers going a different direction, that obviously has some impact on the campaign itself, especially when you have a candidate that has such an aware following as yours does. Because unlike Mitt Romney, where they just, support him out of blindness, your supporters are in the system. Your supporters want to be engaged in the process. So how do you, as a campaign manager, how do you address this issue where you have two distinct groups vying for the same candidacy then?
I'm not a campaign manager. I'm running coalitions. So John Tate's campaign manager and Jesse Benton is campaign chairman. And so I don't know how they're going to handle it. But I do know my loyalty is to Dr. Paul, and I trust him and I trust his judgment. I mean, Dr. Paul may not be perfect, but he's about as good as I found. I mean, I saw him criticized the other day because he took Social Security. I couldn't believe that. They still don't get it. I mean, it's his money. He put it in Social Security all those years, so it's his money. It's not like he's taking money from taxpayers or something. But I trust him as much as I trust anybody. I ran for Congress, and I was leading in the election. I won the primary. I was leading in the election, and it was out in the West Coast in Arizona. And when the people on the East Coast went to bed that night, they thought I'd won because that was the reports. So the next morning when I woke up, I had lost, but the next morning when I woke up, on the telephone were all of these messages, one after another after another. And you know who they were? They were all lobbyists, hundreds of lobbyists. As soon as you get elected to Congress, that's what would have happened to me. I know it looking back on it. I'm ashamed to say it. But what would have happened is I would have gone to Congress, and there would have been a handful of things I really believe in, and nobody could sway me on those. But there would be 60,000 other things, and I would just, I don't really care one way or the other, so I would go the way that the lobbyists told me to go because they'd give me the money to get reelected. And I don't even know that, I see now, after meeting Dr. Paul and seeing how he conducted his life and his career, that that's wrong, but I wouldn't have seen it wrong at the time. So I'm telling you, I've never met anybody like him. It's not like there's a handful of people on Capitol Hill like Dr. Paul and then there's the rest. There's only one, and that's him. So he's not perfect, but he's as close to it as anybody I've ever seen on Capitol Hill. So I trust his judgment, and I've argued with him about things, and he's the only person I know that's changed my mind. I'm sure there's many, but he's the only one I'm aware of who's changed my mind on the issues. So I respect him a great deal.
And I think a lot of people on this can say the very same thing, that because of his position and his ability to stand with integrity on the issues for 30 plus years, they have changed positions too. But as somebody who's been involved in political campaigns prior and somebody who studies history, what's the position then with this other organization? Because we still have that question out there. There's people who are like me and Tracy out here in the real world that is seeing this vision. And we're seeing this group that's trying to act on behalf of that campaign. So that obviously has to affect in some way, shape, or form at least a strategy or a PR perspective from your campaign. So how do we take that then? How do you want people to react to the fact that even though they're not the people you agree with, they're not Ron Paul's counsel, there's still this organization that's doing this on behalf of the campaign?
Well, people can do whatever they want. I mean, that's Ron Paul's the last person to order people around. But if you want to help him and you believe in him and you believe in his cause, you'll patiently follow him and respect his silences as well as his words, and understand that there's reasons for it. There's a time for it. There's a time to speak and a time to be silent. And he's just gone through a very grueling campaign, Most 76-year-old men get a little rest after mowing the lawn. This guy's been running for president. So I'm very impressed with what he's done. I'm very impressed with the 80% of this country that wants to audit the Federal Reserve. The cat's out of the bag. There's no going back. Corruption will continue, but it's going to have to find a different way to do it because people have caught on. And we owe that to Ron Paul.
We owe a lot to Ron Paul. My next question for you quickly is about the convention itself and bound delegates. You're a historian. Are those delegates bound, or are they going to just be able to do what they want and vote their conscience? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are that our Constitution has been compromised by the two-party system. That's my thoughts. But I realistically know that I'm not going to be able to change that. I guess Jefferson couldn't, and they couldn't, and the parties began to develop and form in early American history, and so I wish it weren't so, but the courts, as you know, treat parties like private clubs, and I don't agree with the courts either, but I have to live in the United States of America, and I have to compete under the same rules and the same playground that my opponents are competing on. And well, here's how it relates to the delegates. The Republican Party, when those delegates get to the RNC, if one candidate has a majority, they can pretty well do what they want. If they can take over the Rules Committee and the Credentials Committee and some of those committees, they can disqualify delegations. They've done it all the time. I mean, when I grew up years ago, when they had conventions, they were always taking duly elected delegations from states and disqualifying them and then seating their own. Once they have control, they can do what they want, and if they have 2/3 control, look out. They can rewrite the rules. So that's what we're up against. And understand, this isn't just a contest for the nominee. This is a contest for the future of America. This is these insiders, their piggy bank is at stake. Trillions of dollars is at stake here. So when you see these videos and see broken bones over a delegate here or there, you get the idea that this is a little more serious than it appears in the news media. As it's just a contest in the news media. It's the blue team against the red team. There's nothing philosophical or substantive about it.
Well, just a quick follow-up to that then, just for clarification. When people get to Tampa, are we operating on the rules that were passed on the last convention? Or do the Rules Committee then change the rules halfway through this convention, and then the process is operated under that new set of rules? Because some people are thinking, well, if we go by the last convention's rules, then they've actually opened up a door for the Paul campaign. And then other people are saying, well, the new Rules Committee gets to place the rules in place for this nomination process. So I really don't know. So I'm just kind of curious. Do you know, do we operate off of last time's rules, or?
Look, I think most of your viewers and most of us in the Liberty Movement understand and see that the U.S. Constitution is hanging by a thread, that it's openly violated every day, that just a few years ago a president of the United States had to have a judge's signature before he could tap your telephone. Now he can kill you without a judge's signature. And if the U.S. Constitution is that loose, just imagine how loose the rules are for the Republican National Convention. I mean, they're like the rules at youth camp. in bed by 10 o'clock and can't sneak out of the dorm, and you can't have candy past midnight, and good luck at enforcing rules. But
there's a lot of
so anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Good.
Well, that's a good answer.
What about Ron Paul accepting a VP nod? Do you think that that's something that he'll do? Everyone in the room is asking.
It isn't going to be offered, and he doesn't want to be VP. He wants to change America. He wants to end the corruption in America, where a few people control trillions of dollars, and where the free marketplace is gone, where you can't start a restaurant anymore, you can't start your own business anymore, where the door's shut to young people. And he wants to end the corruption. That's why he has such appeal among Hispanics. And I couldn't figure out why the Hispanics were voting for Ron Paul. I could understand the youth. So I quizzed them at many of these conventions. When I see a Hispanic, I would go up to them immediately, start talking to them. They're all Ron Paul. I don't think I've met a Hispanic who wasn't for Ron Paul at these state conventions. I said, why do you support Ron Paul? Turns out it's the same thing as the youth. Their story would be something like, well, my family came from El Salvador. We've got a lot of corruption in El Salvador. We got here, the American dream, and now we find out it's just as bad in Americans. It's just a different type of corruption as it was in El Salvador. Why did we come here? And that's what it is. It's to the young people or Hispanics, it's the loss of the American dream. It's a corruption of the process. Some people are gaming the system and they're making money. And what's ruined it for the rest of us is they used to let us, at least we could make money on real estate. We could buy a house and then save our money and buy a better house, and it would go up in value and buy another house. That was our ticket to the middle class. Now it's like the Middle Ages. We get a cow, and we better be happy with that cow, but we'll never be rich. And our cow is a big screen TV and access to the internet, and they'll take the internet away as soon as they can. That's all we get. We can't be rich. We are going to be poor, and we got to pay taxes.
Well, what's even worse is we are becoming the cow, and that's, I think, really the scary part. So as we move forward, then obviously you can't tell us specifically what the strategy is, and you can't respond to other people's strategy. But people are looking for some sort of direction because they are such loyal followers of this campaign. What do you want people to do now? I mean, before the message was, hey, we're not going to be campaigning in the media for the popular vote, we're going for the delegates. What is the message between now and Tampa? What do you want people to be doing? What do you want the strategy to be moving forward? There obviously has to be something that people who want to help can continually help with.
I would say, I don't know. I mean, they can do whatever they want. I'm going to be loyal to Ron Paul. Gandhi taught this cycle, and let me see if I can remember right. It was success leads to success leads to disunity. Disunity leads to failure. Failure leads to unity. Unity leads to success. And round it goes. When people can be united, they can be successful. When they're successful, they break up and become disunited. When they're disunited, they fail. They become poor. And when they're poor, they once again come together and unite. And so it continually goes in this cycle. And his whole object was to freeze it long enough to get independence for India from Great Britain, was to stay together long enough. And when the poverty, let's see, it wasn't, the word he didn't use was poverty, it was, I'm going to have to look it up. Somebody can Google it and see. But when the pain is bad enough, when the poverty is bad enough, people will unite. They'll come together. And when they unite, they'll have success. And so I would urge people to not divide, to remain patient and to remain calm and to stick with Ron Paul, to be united. I hear people criticize the campaign. I got to tell you, if you think this is a poorly run campaign, you should have seen some of the ones I've been on. I've been on 7 presidential campaigns. This was pretty impressive. And I know Jesse Benton and John Tate gets criticism, but I've got to tell you, the people that ran the Mitt Romney campaign, he couldn't even take the delegates in his own home state of Massachusetts. And the people that ran the Rick Santorum campaign he couldn't get on the ballot. In his home state of Pennsylvania, there are 2 or 3 districts where he didn't have any delegates running. And in Illinois, he had slots that were empty. He couldn't get on the ballot in Virginia. Gingrich couldn't get on the ballot in Virginia. He had delegates sitting there that were his to take, and Washington couldn't get anybody to show up to take the slots. So people who are displeased with how this campaign's run, I can tell you, I've seen a lot worse. And
that's also a testament to the grassroots, people out here who did all this work too.
That's right. Very, very much so. And Rand, the criticism that Rand had, if we've got a chance for Rand to become president of the United States, it's worth it. I know people, they say, well, we don't want to compromise. He should run as a vice president with Gary Johnson, or he should start a third party, or all these other things. He's a traitor because he endorsed the nominee. That's how the neocons, that's how the liberal Republicans have been elected. When Barry Goldwater was defeated in 1964, that election cycle, Richard Nixon campaigned vigorously for him all across the United States. For every congressional candidate and for every gubernatorial and senatorial candidate, Richard Nixon was out there when other Republicans were saying, this thing's going down in blazes, Goldwater's a nut, I'm out of here, I don't want anything to do with it. And 4 years later, Richard Nixon was president of the United States. That's how politics is played. And Rand Paul is different. He actually has a chance to become president. And, the Bible teaches stewardship, being good steward of what you have. Whatever it is, whatever gift you've been given, it's precious, and you have a responsibility to take good care of it. And he's been given an opportunity to become president. And I would love that.
Well, hold on, but that leads to a very interesting question. You keep referring to, and I'm not going to weigh in on the Rand controversy because to me it's fairly irrelevant, but you weighed in and said, he has a chance to be president. How does he have this chance to be president? Do you know that he's going to be on the ticket? Do you already know that he's going to have a place in the administration? And if so, where is that allegiance from the RNC? Because what we've seen from the RNC towards Rand has actually been the exact opposite. They spent money to actively campaign against him. So is there some deal that we weren't aware of where Rand is getting a position within this administration?
No, but there's no way that he's going to win the Republican. If he won the Republican nomination, if Rand Paul did not endorse the nominee, like all the other candidates except Ron has done, if he did not endorse the nominee, and 4 years from now, if Obama's reelected, and 4 years from now, the country awakened to this message that we're talking about, and Rand Paul ran for president, and he won, there would be senators and governors and congressmen, some of them, who wouldn't support him in the general election because they said, you didn't support Mitt Romney, I don't want anything to do with this, and let it go down in flames. But they can't do that now. They would have to support him.
So he was pretty much doing it just to play politics because he had to. He didn't look very happy when he was up there, I have to be honest. So that's good to hear from your...
Well, I don't know. I don't know why he did it because I wasn't privy to his counsel on it. I know that he cares very much about the cause of liberty. I'm very impressed with him. I compare him to any other senator, and there's just no comparison, in my opinion. And if he had a chance at being president, he could actually get some things done, that he could start moving this country turn it around. So I would love to be able to live to see that happen. But to do that, he has to be Joe Republican, you know?
I have everybody down in the chat asking about Paul Festival, because we're all going to go be down there, and everyone's asking if Ron or you or anyone's going to be at Paul Festival. And Ron, Jesse came out and said we will never go to an event that's not sponsored by the campaign, and we're all down there for him and for the cause of liberty. And do you think there's a chance that there might be a stop there or something?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I know Dr. Paul's trying to figure out just what the right thing to do is. Dr. Paul has to be responsible for his name and how his name is used. And just like you do, like you and I do, we have to do that too. We can't just go online and see somebody's using our name and saying something or claiming something. We have a responsibility towards that. So I don't know what they have planned or who they've invited or and who they haven't invited and all the details of it to be able to speak intelligently on it. And I'm sure he doesn't know yet either. But so that remains to be seen. But so many people are interested in and want to go down there. I suspect that he will respond to that. And but I get back to this Gandhi illustration. Things have to be really, really bad before people unite. And when they're good, people divide. They split up. They fight over the loot. But when things are really bad, when you've had enough, then you're willing to work together and work each other. And I urge everybody to be patient and hang tight and wait and see what Dr. Paul's decisions are about some of these things. And back to Rand, let me just say this. If Dr. Paul had not run for president in the Republican Party, I'd have never heard of him. And I saw him in the presidential debates, the Republican presidential debates, and I was blown away. I had this little piece of information about Iraq that I knew personally, and I saw him talking. I thought, who is this guy? How's he getting away with this? And a lot of people in the movement didn't like the fact they felt he compromised by competing as a Republican candidate, but it was the best thing he ever did, I believe, or I'd have never known about him. So in the same way, Rand is positioning himself to be someone who could run for president and win. And I don't begrudge him that. I think that's wise. I think it would be wrong for him, even if he's criticized for it, I think it'd be wrong for him not to be a wise steward of that opportunity and give it his best. Too much is at stake.
Agreed. There's a lot of people asking, wow, we have a lot of questions down here. People, hold on, we need Ron. Oh yeah, so when's the last time you spoke with Ron Paul directly?
A few days ago.
And is he liking all this excitement? Is he happy about it? What does he think? Is he just relaxing? What's on his mind? Do you have any idea?
I really like Ron Paul. He's guileless. I urged him in the debates to punch back. I said, what's going to happen. They aren't going to come to you. They're going to go to everybody else. So when they finally come to you, knock it out of the park, fight back, hit them for it, and say, I don't care what you think of Ron Paul, you owe those millions of people who want to end these wars and who want to end this cronyism and end this secrecy of the monetary system and open up the free markets. You owe them the respect of giving me the time to speak for them. I urge that, but he's an eternal optimist, and he's kind to people, and that's just his personality. And I guess now, having seen him in operation, I wouldn't change it. That's the way he is. So we're all out here. We're all scrappers and fighters, and he's this kindly old country doctor, I call him, this professor who sees these issues without losing his temper, without becoming bitter over it all. And I don't know how he's carried it for 22 years. I think that's probably part of the secret, is he doesn't take it personal.
When did you actually find out about him? Because you said if you hadn't seen the debates, was it the first 2008 campaign, or was it later on?
It was a 2008 campaign. Okay. I was watching the debate, and I thought, who is this guy?
That's awesome.
I thought, this blows me away. How's he getting away with this? How can he say this? Oh, I saw a replay of it over breakfast, and I spit the Cheerios out of my nose when he started talking. I was so surprised at what he was saying. And then I started reading his positions, and I said, well, this guy's got a chance, but he's going to have to change his position on drugs. He's going to have to change his position. I went down the line, all these things he's going to have to change his position on. Instead, I've changed my position on all of those things.
That's awesome. Doug, what about you? Will you come down to Paul Fest and speak?
Well, I would love to come down there. It depends on what I have to do for the campaign and the dates and how they overlap, because we'll have delegates there on the ground, and there's committee meetings and all that sort of thing. But if it can be worked out, I'll be glad to do it.
All right, Josh, you go.
Well, I was going to say, since you were talking about loyalty to Ron Paul, and that is only exemplified by carrying on what has brought us to this point so far, then that loyalty would mean to continue on that fight, to continue on presenting the information that has converted so many people, just like it has you. I mean, obviously, once we get to this point, there's no going back to the traditional form of the RNC. So if we're going to continue that form of loyalty from now until, well, beyond the election cycle in reality, then we have to continue fighting for the principles that Dr. Paul has fought for, and realize that it's us. It's us that has gotten us here. So, again, back to that question that didn't really have an answer, what do you want us to do between now and August to help you in that effort? Because people are going to ask, and once we're done with this, they're going to say, oh, but Josh, what do we actually do? How can we help their effort if they're not telling us what that effort is? And we understand strategy, but what can we do between now and then?
Well,
go ahead.
Well, you paraphrased what I said. You said to be loyal forever or whatever. No, we're talking about a presidential campaign, and I expect I would urge everyone to be loyal through this presidential campaign, through the convention. Our first loyalty is to the U.S. Constitution. And that's where all of us, our loyalty is. If Dr. Paul veered away from the U.S. Constitution, I wouldn't expect people to be loyal to him. But he has given 22 years of his life putting the Constitution forward in a way that many of the rest of us can't compete with. So he surely deserves a little patience and a little loyalty leading up to this convention this summer. That's my point. I don't mean that if Dr. Paul suddenly decides he's going to veer left or he's going to go here or there, that we all have to follow him. That's not my point at all. Our loyalties to the Constitution, he's the one that's awakened us to these truths. There's no going back. Our commitment is to these truths, not just to him, but there is a commitment to him as the father of this liberty movement and as a campaign candidate for president. There is a commitment to stick with him through this convention and not just rip the movement apart and tear it apart and divide the spoils here or there, but to stick together, because unity brings success. And
that's awesome. You're absolutely right. There are people actually asking, you talked about the troops. What do you think about the troops march on the RNC that's being organized?
I don't know the details of it.
They're just a bunch of veterans and active duty military. They're going to do what they did in the March on Washington, where they marched to the White House and they stood in silence for each death that has happened through the wars. And it's going to be hundreds and hundreds and maybe even thousands and thousands of troops walking down, marching to the RNC in that same fashion.
Fascinating. Yeah, that's fascinating. I would encourage anybody who's planning anything to try to vet it with the campaign, so that Dr. Paul, what Dr. Paul's doing, his message and his plans aren't unintentionally disrupted or hurt. Because it's only a couple of months. I'm looking at my calendar here on the wall. It's all going to be over in a couple of months. So then somebody else may run for president.
I really like the way you're talking, because finally I'm hearing optimism and I'm not hearing giving up, and everything that you're saying is leading me to believe that you really kind of do feel that there is a chance that he might be able to walk away with the nomination or something even more important than that. And it's really awesome, and thank you for that.
You're welcome. Well, I have believed all along that this convention will be an important echo chamber to our own American media, because the American media is compromised by the money, the Federal Reserve money. I mean, here's a candidate, Dr. Paul, who wants the Federal Reserve to be transparent. He wants us to know how much money they're going to create and to whom it's given. That's all. And we know from the partial audit we had that huge amounts of money go to these corporations that own some of these television companies, and they go to major companies that advertise interest-free loans of hundreds of millions of dollars to companies that advertise on these television stations. And so they have tremendous power, tremendous say, and Dr. Paul has taken on this whole thing. And it's been a pretty dramatic challenge, pretty dramatic challenge. And
does he have 5 states, Doug?
That's exactly, yeah, that's what I was going to ask too.
Does he have 5 states? Does he have a plurality? Does he have those 5 states to be on the ballot?
I can't say that. And under Rule 40, he doesn't need to have a majority in 5 states. You know
Amen.
that. So.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Now,
we'll see.
that just summed up 49 minutes, Doug. You just took 49 minutes of dropping hints and putting things between the lines, and you just gave hope to everybody in this room, because that's exactly what they've been thinking, regardless of what the mainstream media or even other representatives have said. So thank you so much.
Just keep in mind, the RNC can do what they want. If people in Washington can do what they want with the U.S. Constitution, keep in mind what they can do with their country club rules, what they can do.
Thanks, Doug. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Are you open for maybe one more question?
Okay.
Anybody? There's one last question that we're going to ask. Everyone's so excited. I can't even catch a question. The chat room's going so quick, Doug. I don't know if you can catch one down there. Okay, you know what? Thank you. Unless you can catch a question, I don't want to keep you for the rest of the night, but this was great.
It was great. I think it was really great, and I thank you, Doug, for joining us. This was awesome.
Don't forget, you've got logic and you've got truth on your side. So if you're patient, people like me, who I worked for the Bush family, I was an establishment Republican, had Gerald Ford in my home 2 different times on 2 different occasions, and people like me can be won over because it's the truth of your message and it's the logic of your message. And if you're patient and you want to win, you don't want to suffer and lose, you want to win. So you certainly don't want to compromise to win, but you you've got to be willing to fight without your hands tied behind your back. And that means a willingness to understand how the political game is played and to play it. And we have certainly done a better job at it this cycle than we did last cycle.
Yeah.
We gave them a run for their money, and considering what we're up against, what we were up against and are up against, is pretty impressive. I was going to say that echo chamber we wanted is all the foreign media are going to be here for Tampa. So they're going to, and many of these journalists in other countries are very impressed with Dr. Paul. Some from Britain and France, they'll have their marching orders. They depend on the central bank there. They depend on our own Federal Reserve to bail them out. So they'll have marching orders dictated from their executives. But journalists from other countries of the world, many of them, are, well, people here in America criticize Ron Paul as kooky. They think he's the only American who makes sense. He's saying America should mind her own business and quit bombing people. And in Holland, there's a little joke that makes the rounds that says there are two ways for an American to become an isolationist. One of them is not to talk to anybody, and the other one is to bomb everybody. And that's how America is viewed. And Ron Paul's the only sane person that they see in American politics. And when those journalists descend on Tampa, it'll be the most international event outside of the Olympics for the next decade. We want our own American media to be shamed by their good coverage of Dr. Paul and his message. So that's why we hope there will be unity and cooperation and dignity, and we can get this message out. Thanks for what you're doing, Tracy, and for what you're doing, Josh.
Thanks for being here. We hope you come back next time.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Me too.
Bye, Doug.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. You're welcome.
So that was amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I love the last 5 minutes of it, actually.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was really great. Hey,
So
Josh,
go ahead.
he pretty much gave everybody in this room a reason to wake up in the morning and jump up for joy.
I think so, yeah. I think so. And I think one of the really interesting things is he admitted, it's not over. And I get it. I read the comments. Josh, read between the lines. No, I get that. I get it. That's why I'm here, because I got between the lines. But what we really needed was that admission, it's not over until it's over. So they just needed somebody to say it. So when you have Doug Wead come out and say, hey, it's not over, that I think gave hope to a lot of people.
That was, geez, awesome, just awesome. Josh, do you have a few more minutes? We have another amazing guest here.
Sure, why not?
He's made the movie Electable. It's coming out next Thursday, I believe, and he's going to come up here right now. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good. How you doing, Tracy? How you doing, Josh?
Oh, good.
So tell
Glad
us.
to be here. I just what? Go ahead. Sorry.
Tell us what this is all about. This is crazy. Tell us what you're doing.
Well, I'm just give you a quick backstory. I'm a filmmaker out of Chicago. I've been doing this for over 15 years, and to date we've done almost 1,000 motion pictures, whether that's corporate videos, TV commercials, brand films for the web, and work with some really exciting technology to promote brands, for companies around the world. About 5 years ago, I discovered Ron Paul, and initially it was just trying to understand the whole philosophy of liberty and get involved in all that type of stuff. So I wasn't really thinking about the movie thing, but as we headed towards 2012 and I saw that he was going to make a go for it, then I really started thinking about, man, what would be a great way for myself to contribute? And so here we are, 4 or 5 days out from this short feature film. It's about 15 minutes long. It's a fictional film, so it stars actors, and really, without revealing every little single thing in this piece, because I want to build up some interest for this launch on Thursday. The film ultimately asks, it's kind of funny, when the last few things Doug was just talking about speak exactly to what Electable is all about, and that is this whole notion of truth in the media and integrity in the media. And so if I had to summarize what Electable is all about, is if some sort of transformational event occurred, okay, and the media suddenly was able to tell the truth about Ron Paul, what would they really say?
Wow.
So that's the premise right there, and I've not given that up till right now, basically. That's what this thing is going to be about. Everybody's seen the higher production values of the piece, and they've seen the girl with the flag and all that kinds of neat stuff, and that was the marketing hook to get people to pay attention. That I think this is probably a pretty serious effort. But I've been a pretty active, pretty strong daily active member on the Daily Paul, and pretty much every single day of my life for the last 5 years. And a lot of the dialogue that comes from the actors in this piece is directly from the Daily Paul. It's basically Ron Paul's messaging and what you guys have all said.
And you say you voted, you filmed this over 4 days, over a couple weeks?
Yeah, and there's going to be a fifth this Tuesday because we just got to get some pickup stuff. My original goal was for this thing to actually be like a 5 to 6 minute short film. And then we just kept kind of growing organically, and it kept getting more and more cool stuff going on. And so it kind of blew up. So on Tuesday we got to film a few more pickup things. But yeah, and it features about I don't have an exact count, but I want to say probably 12 or 13 actors out of Chicago. So it's robust, man. It's a big effort, and just to kind of put this is important that I say this to everybody out there who's watching. There's an awful lot of grassroots films out there, YouTube stuff that I think is absolutely amazing. If I just to kind of throw a few out there, I watch a lot of T-Mot. I watch a lot of Matt Larson 10.
I think actually.
What's that?
Matt Larson is in here, I believe.
He's amazing. As a matter of fact, okay, so if he's in here, I want to say just directly to him, he is pretty much the main reason why Electable's happening, because when I heard that Ron said, I'm not going to campaign anymore, we have 1 day of filming at that point for this piece, and he says, I'm not going to actively campaign the primaries. It was such a ridiculous letdown, and probably maybe, I don't know, 36 hours had passed or something like that, and Matt put a video out there that was extremely uplifting, and I was like, well, this guy's got millions of views, and he's being legitimate here. It's legitimate saying he's going to stick with it, and we're going to see it to the convention, and he sounds pretty dang positive. I needed somebody to give me the picker-upper, so Matt, is that Matt right there, by the way?
Yes, it is.
Never seen a picture of him. Well, thank you, by the way, because I'm being totally honest. I saw your stuff, and I was like, where do we go from here? I need somebody to pick me up, and I saw your video the next day, and I was like, you know what? This guy's got conviction. I got conviction. I'm going to follow this thing through. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. You're doing a fantastic job by coming out here and actually producing a high-production film that I think that is what many people need to actually kind of start buying into things. The people that are just on the ropes right now, not actually believing in Ron Paul, I think once they see how much production that you're putting into this, that could be the thing that can push them over the line and actually come out on our side and join the force of liberty. So
yeah, you just summarized. I was kind of going there for a second, and I started talking about started talking about how I was inspired by you. This effort, we shot it with the Epic camera, which is the same camera as the Epic camera and the Red 1 camera. They're the same cameras that Peter Jackson is using on the Lord of the Rings prequel. So there is no higher camera on the planet, and I'm terribly proud of that. I've worked very hard to get to that point with my company to be able to use that type of technology. And when I started up my YouTube channel, I can't remember if it was right around Christmas time or just afterwards. The one thing I was real clear about is like, I don't want to put these high gloss videos out there. I certainly could in 2 seconds, but I think it's going to come across as talking on a different level and pretentious, and I'm not being real. I'm not in the grassroots with these guys, so I'm just going to use my eyesight camera and tell it like it is. Now, that being said, I think that works against us a lot of the times when I'm trying to convince friends, because they're like, they see some of my friends have seen this on Facebook or whatever, and they'll be like, dude, what's up? Why are you, why are you filming it in this way? It seems kind of, some of them get a little bit of a creepy vibe about it. I'm like, yeah, but honestly, most people don't have access to these kind of cameras, and I want to keep it very real because I'm serious about this, man. And so anyway, that being said, in this effort, I swung for the fences big time because I feel like outside of the commercials that the campaign has done and some of the ones that Revolution PAC has done, which I think are fantastic, we need that quality there for people to take it seriously. I'm really just summarizing what you said, but that's just my perspective on the approach to this whole thing.
How long is it?
It's I can't give you an exact because there's a couple subtleties going on. with the script and just editing decisions at the very end. Do we really want to keep that one scene in there or not? But I would say safely it's 15 minutes long, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm trying my very best to get a trailer out there, mainly because I think it's going to help generate a crazy amount of excitement among the media, the Huffington Post of the world, the Drudge Reports, who knows, maybe a couple other people, when they see a good 40-second, 50-second preview of the really high-end stuff, they're going to know that I was not screwing around, because the big thing that I want to keep a surprise is, what is the transformational event going to be, And that one is, believe me, as Hollywood as it gets. And when that happens, then the media suddenly is going to get the opportunity to have a very different perspective and opportunity to tell how they really feel it, about Ron Paul. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And, the actors we got, they're local. These aren't national, Hollywood superstars. But believe me, we worked our tails off with these guys to get the performance we were looking at, and they nailed it, And it's, by the way, it's a very diverse cast, and that was intentional. And they were all on board, to do this. They knew what this was all about. So I'm super excited to.
That's awesome.
To get this out there.
It's awesome.
And I think the timing of it's wonderful too, because one of the things that we were talking about with Doug is, the strategy moving forward. And if we're going to look at the foreign media versus the American media, we know from a presidential candidate standpoint, the media is not with us. However, we also know that the American media makes a lot of money and does a lot of effort in the fight promotion in politics in general. So if we can re-alert that there is a pending jockeying for position coming up in Tampa, then we can give more of that American coverage, which in turn is going to help, the delegate process once we get there. And this film is going to play a huge role in that, because it is going to offer a level of sophistication to that effort. So awesome.
The thing that I keep thinking about is that there's, for a while I was trapped. These thoughts were trapped in my own head. Didn't know that there was a community out there like you guys, and I'm so grateful to have found it. But at the end of the day, there's an awful lot of people out there who value integrity and value truth, and will reward the media if they would be more honest in this situation. I mean, honestly, from my perspective, if they could tell most of the truth about Ron Paul, and he got beat fair and square, I could live with it, man. I was in sports for a long time. I get that concept. You're not always going to end up number one, but you always aim for first place. And but it's not even remotely. I mean, I don't even need to preach to you guys. It's not even remotely close. I sit back with my wife and we watch, these debates, or we, see some of these videos that are out there where we laugh. We're like, this is so blatantly obvious. And I think there's an awful lot more Americans out there than there used to be 4 years ago who are totally aware of this. And so, but they don't know, okay, so what do I do, right? And so I'm not kind of trying to claim that this 15 minutes that I'm putting out there is going to solve every issue, but I think it's going to speak to it, and there is a plan of action in there. And, and it's done at such a high production quality level that my hope, is that it'll get shared a lot and get people to continue the dialogue. Because at the end of the day, if I accomplish one thing with this film, the most important thing I hope I accomplish is what Ron Paul said, maybe it was about a week or so ago, I forget what show he was on. He said, why aren't we continuing a debate all the way up to the convention? Why is that such a bad idea that we have to talk about things and have different viewpoints? And the way this thing is kind of put together, it would be impossible to make everybody happy. It's not going to happen. If I were to describe it from a purely creative standpoint, it's like an art film. There's a lot of really cool shock and awe stuff going on in this thing throughout it, and I think there's a lot of entertainment value into this. I do take a serious tone in parts where I'm trying to get people to think about stuff, but ultimately it's about keeping the dialogue going to the convention, because even at the convention, why are we supposed to be embrace Romney and that's it, it's over, don't talk about it, go back to work and that's it, see you guys in 4 years. So I'm trying to make sure that this contributes to that sentiment shared by Ron Paul.
You're doing something really amazing. It's hard to do this. You're lucky enough to have the facility to do it, from your profession. But I can't wait to see it. I'm reading and watching. Is that your house you're standing in your little promo video?
Oh no, that the promo video. This is my house. This is my man cave here. But the higher gloss one, that's Richter Studios. That's my studio downtown Chicago. It's about 6 blocks west of the Sears Tower, and anybody who lives in Chicago, they want to stop by sometime. We'll play pool, have drinks. It's an awesome environment, man.
So what video games? Oh, we're going to play it now.
Hi, I'm
okay,
Jeremy
mute your mics, guys, up there.
Writer and director out of Chicago. And I'm here today to tell you about a short film that I'm about to release about Ron Paul called Electable. And it's going to be released.
Jeremy, if you can mute your microphone so that the echo doesn't come out.
Oh, mute my at the top?
I believe so, or if like you have a mute button in your...
Released for everyone to share.
Yeah, up at the top.
On Thursday, June 28th. So less than 3 weeks away, this thing's going to be out there. And to just give you a bit of a bigger glimpse about what we've been working on, it was shot over 4 days, over the last couple of weeks. And we shot it with both the Epic camera and the Red 1 camera, fabulous camera, same cameras that Peter Jackson's used on Lord of the Ring Prequels. This piece is going to star over a dozen actors. I'm just thrilled with how everything has turned out so far. Very high-end stuff with a lot of passion in this, and the results have been fantastic so far. And really the bigger message I'm trying to get out through this is I've followed Ron Paul for 5 years, read his books, been to his speeches, met lots of wonderful people who've enlightened me on a lot of different things about the philosophies of liberty. And I think now is the time to be bold, because Ron Paul obviously ran in 2008 and he opened up a lot of people's eyes to the political process and how America is probably headed in the wrong direction. And now in 2012, if you look at the crowds he's been having and just the results at the polls at a lot of these primaries he's been in, he's made some serious traction. And I would guess he's probably either tripled or quadrupled his numbers over the last 4 years. So as we head towards Tampa, there's been a lot of people talking about how Ron Paul will make a statement when he's there. And I think I can say with confidence for a lot more people who believe in Ron Paul, we want him to get the nomination and nobody else. And that's because we believe so strongly in his message. And I think this piece is going to speak to that, plus everything that he's been up against. I don't think he's got a very fair shake in the media, giving him a chance to express his views or represent him fairly about the types of crowds Ron Paul has been attracting. And but at the end of the day, we want this to be a fun thing. This short film, we also want it to be educational in nature, just like The Good Doctor. So that's where my heart has been with this whole thing. And I've gotten all my information. I've gotten educated, and I've learned about liberty through all the people out in the community. Whether it's the Daily Paul or a lot of different forums that I go to, these are people that don't even know me, but they make posts, they do blogs, they post videos. Sometimes they're just straight up inspiring to watch, to see how much that person's put their heart and soul into this. And other times it's a bit more didactic, like Ron Paul, where I get a chance to learn. And so this piece is going to be a very exciting piece, believe me. I'm shooting for the stars of this and putting 15 years of creativity and amassing a very solid creative team to put out a wonderful short film. But at the end of the day, I want it to be education. I want people to have a lot of fun watching this. But I need your help. And one of the ways we can do that right now is by subscribing to my channel, and probably in another, because I'll be releasing a few more videos over the next week or two with a lot more specific knowledge of what we're going to do. But we're going to be launching a webpage that's going to talk a bit more in detail about the different things that are going to be going on, because there's going to be a short film and then there's going to be a shortened version of that same thing. We're really thinking about how to make this stuff go viral. And there's been obviously money bombs and there's been book bombs and there's all these different things that really creative, unique ways that Ron Paul has either raised money or helped get awareness out there. And what I want to do with this effort is I want to have a YouTube view bomb, because I think I've got the goods, and I feel very comfortable about saying that this is going to be the biggest, baddest piece ever done for Ron Paul, and he deserves no less. He has inspired so many people, so I'm putting it all out there to let you guys know that on June 28th, there's going to be an awful lot of fireworks. So I hope you join me on that day, and I hope this extended glimpse of seeing some more stuff gives you a better idea of what this is all going to be about. It should be a lot of fun. Thanks.
That's awesome, man.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Hey, real quick before I forget, can you guys hear me now, by the way? This Bridget Erickson girl, who's, I'm calling her Lady Liberty in this piece, I've worked on her quite a few commercials at Richter Studios. She's at 22 or 23, but here's the thing. I want to make sure everybody hears this. She's beautiful. And I say that because I think Liberty is beautiful. And there's all these like different ways and reasons why I would want to have her in there to do that. You know, there's a marketing hook. There's the fact that I think that Liberty is a beautiful thing. But more importantly than anything, Bridget is a huge Austrian economics fan. I've had a lot of conversations with this girl. She has a finance degree. It's kind of funny. I tease her about being nerdy a lot. So for anybody out there who might think that, oh, he's just trying to find a sexy girl, I'm like, yeah, there's a marketing hook there, but man, she is the absolute real deal. So it's a match made in heaven, in my opinion. I've got the cameras, I've got the goods, I've got a great script, and then I've got people who actually believe in this stuff, so it's going to shine through and through. And also, before I forget, too, just because I got some scattered notes I did want to mention, I did put up a Facebook page for Electable today, and we're going to put a lot of stuff up there. For some reason, it wouldn't let me make it be Facebook/Electable, Electable with a K. But anyway, if people want to join that, we're going to have a lot of behind-the-scenes photo galleries of how we shot it, and some more videos, and there's going to be a lot of neat stuff coming up for this launch. So if they're interested.
You can actually have your movie down. We're going to have movies down at Paul Festival. You can come down there and have that going and sell some DVDs and stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely want to do that. To be honest with you, I haven't had a lot. I know there's a couple different festivals going on at the same date, and I'm not sure how all that's going to play out, but I just know that it's in Tampa is where I need to be. So, and I've already talked to my wife, and I'm sorting that stuff out, but I'm going to be there, and I would love for this to be played down there. I mean, first things first, we got to get out there, people got to react to it. I think the chances are good it's going to go off the charts, but ultimately it's the market that decides if they're going to like it or not.
It's going to be free?
Yeah, it's a YouTube thing, so it's in perpetuity for you guys to watch as long as you want, and
awesome.
Just trying to help out, however I can. And the other thing is, I wish I could have got this done sooner, guys. Definitely gotten a lot of emails and comments from people saying, "Dude, what are you doing this style? The primaries are over, and thanks for doing it now." And I'm trying to do my best to explain that I have a company that I run day to day, and I'm in other countries, flying around the world, filming these commercials. I'm not even in my own home country, And that was the first part of this year, and sometimes I can't control that stuff. So really what I had to do is plan it out probably about 8 weeks, and saw that there was going to be about 10 days where I might be able to pull this off, and I was like, and it's going to be really crappy timing, but I got a family, I got responsibilities just like you guys do, so it was the best I could do. And after I saw Matt's video, it's not going to happen. I thought, no, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to stick to my original guns, with the message which was Ron Paul can win the nomination. And I'm the kind of guy who, I don't think you go to the convention with the mindset, let's just have a great second place finish. Let's get people to respect us. I'm like, that's BS, man. You go there with the mindset that you want to win. I mean, who knows what could happen between now and then? We could go to war. There could be a financial crisis. There could be any number of things we're not anticipating right now. Or maybe the truth could win out in the end. And we all know that we want that to happen. And you know what? Maybe, who knows what that could be. So if this could contribute to that in any way, that's where my heart is, to open up more eyes.
Well, I have to unfortunately jump off here, but you're in capable hands. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to watch, and thank you, Jeremy. I'm sure I'll be talking to you again. You're launching your movie at the same exact time as my show next Thursday, so my thought is that we just also simulcast it on my show at the same time.
Sure.
All right, Matt, talk to you guys all later. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, Tracy.
Hey, real quick, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Jeremy, you were talking about how you want to do a YouTube bomb and you want to try to spread it around. I can put it on my channel and try to get as many people out there viewing it. I basically just need your permission, and I can get it out there to thousands.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt, this is for you guys to, I mean, I'll have it on my channel, but however we got to coordinate, I don't want to invest too much time talking about this when everybody's still on the chat thing, but I would like to talk to both you and Josh offline about this piece. It's good stuff. I just didn't know how to get a hold of you directly, to be quite honest. And if I could, it'll be an easy conversation. But I do need to talk to you about that. It has to do with how we make this thing a little bit more viral, specific to the film, the content of the film itself. And I just want to get however I get your do I hit you up on Facebook, or how do I, what's the best, easiest, through YouTube, or what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Facebook or YouTube works for me. Otherwise, email. I mean, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
Okay, so I'll hit you guys up.
Facebook's fine with me, or email josh@joshtulleyshow.com. That's whichever works best.
Okay. So it's good stuff. And before I forget, there was a couple things I did want to mention for motivation, and because I thought it was a very it's one of those stories that I don't get to tell too many people. Do I have a minute here to tell this, because I think it's important people hear this? So about I want to say it was about 5 years ago. This is before I discovered Ron Paul. Maybe it was about 6 years ago. Anyway, some good friends of mine, of my wife that she used to work with, we were at this party and we were talking, and all of a sudden the night carried on, and somehow we got into talking about politics. And I'll never forget this conversation, because I was like so creeped out afterwards. These are wonderful people. They were just sharing something that they experienced, and they said, they've had a good run. No head in there. So they've had a good run in life. They're very successful, and we just happened to know them before they ever had all the good fortune they had. So we've remained good friends. Anyway, they went to this party, and I'm going to be slightly vague in the details intentionally, but they went to this party where there was a lot of international dignitaries, so political figures and whatnot. And there was also a lot of fat cats there, a lot of really wealthy, most likely billionaires would be my guess. And anyway, they were in the room with everybody, and so this was later in the night, just maybe 40 or 50 people, and they're all just kind of having a more intimate conversation. And so they said, we're sitting in the back, and for however we pulled this off, the people in that room thought that we were one of them, and so we just kind of went with it. And anyway, the night carried on, and all of a sudden they started talking about America and Americans and how they've had it too good for too long, and that had to end, and that the middle class thing was something that they had to stomp out forever. And they said, there's probably going to be this housing bust, and this is an opportunity for us to keep these people under our foot permanently. Because who do these people think they are if they can have it as good as they have it? They've had it too good for too long. And I heard this, and I was just like, you're telling me I know you're telling me the truth. We've known each other for 20 years, but I can't believe you actually heard this. I'm like, these people were, I can't tell you who these people were, but these people were powerful people, man, and this was their sentiment, and they were not joking. They were absolutely serious about this. And so that's when my Ron Paul journey began. The minute I heard that, I thought, man, some really bad things are coming our way. I don't think they were screwing around. And I think it was probably at the very beginning of the whole housing bust situation, so you can kind of see the writing on the wall. But I wanted to share that story because that's something that motivates me every day when I think about that. Like, how dare those Americans think that they can have a middle class and look for the good life? Unbelievable. So for what it's worth, I wanted to share that insight with you guys. Crazy.
Well, and I think that does serve as motivation, and what your film is going to do is it's going to take us to August, to November, to January and beyond, because regardless of what happens between now and the swearing in of the next president, we're going to need to continue this fight for liberty. We're going to continue to need films, documentaries, shows that have that message to it, because just like so many people have woken up between 2008 and 2012, we still need that growth, that influx in this movement, because even though it's huge now, the room for growth is just enormous. So because of films like that, it's going to have a large impact on that.
Yeah, and I think we got to find a way to make, it's funny to me now that I get it. 5 years ago, I'm being totally honest too, because I just wasn't politically savvy at all. It would take 5 minutes of my time to say I like him or I don't like him or whatever, and that was the end of my political involvement. But if someone asked me 5 years ago what liberty meant, I swear to you, I'd have been like, well, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But, yeah, but what does liberty mean, And I'm telling you, I would have no idea. I would have had no idea. I can absolutely define it now, and I'm going to fight for it to my last breath. But I think a lot of people out there, when they hear the word libertarian or liberty, they get kind of weirded out, which to me is like, what? How could you get weirded out by it? So I think there has to be an effort to make liberty a very attractive notion and make them, so there's, you guys know this, I'm not meaning to preach to you, but to want them to learn more about it and understand how it benefits them, and that it is a beautiful word, And so I think this film is going to accomplish a lot of that, because, there's there's just some high production values, and I do my very best to try and get the message out about it and why it's important and how it ties into the Constitution. And I'm doing all this in a very creative, fictional, way through this film. But I think that's the challenge moving forward post the RNC is we've got to keep making sure people understand what that word means. I really don't think people know what it means.
I think just connecting with people and trying to show them in the most relatable fashion that you can is the way to win people over. So when you have these fictional films, it's just a lot easier to put yourself in their shoes and kind of relate to them more on a one-on-one basis. And that's where you're going to wake more people up and realize that freedom and liberty is good. It just takes a little bit more responsibility, and you can't rely on the government and other people as much. But once people stand up for themselves and they get strength in their liberty legs, they're going to love it, and they're never going to want to give it back. So as soon as they get that first taste, I think there's no going back from there. And then that is the idea that cannot be stopped right there.
Amen to that, man. I'm on board with all that, without a doubt. So I wonder if there's a couple of... Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Josh.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that plays a lot into how this movement is growing, too, because if you ask people, how did you become aware of this? It wasn't somebody beating them over the head with a pamphlet. It was always, they had this conversion moment. And whether it was a documentary they watched or a YouTube video they watched or a show they tuned into, everybody who gets to this place leads themselves here. It's not a push movement. It's more of a lead them to it movement. And when we do things like this, when we do shows and the Ron Paul Tribune show like this or your documentaries or your YouTube videos, we have the ability to meet people where they're thirsty. People always told me, well, Josh, you can't lead a horse to water and make him drink. And it's simply not true. You just have to make the horse thirsty first. And when we make films and do shows, it allows the thirst in them to be answered without any pushback. We have this tendency to want to tell everybody, you have to wake up, you have to wake up. And I can tell you from a behavioral strategist standpoint, if I was going to hypnotize you tonight and get you to quit smoking and I use that process, you would naturally push back against us. So when we lead them to a place where they discover it for themselves, it's 10 times more powerful than standing on a corner just beating them over the head with some sort of information bag.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. Sounds like we're very synced up. Hey, incidental story for you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, in terms of synced up, we should definitely work something out because I'm in your neighborhood all the time.
Are you in Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
Near Chicago? Oh, wow. Actually, a little fun story for you. I guess normally I wouldn't share this, but I think it's important for people to know how crazy is this. But I'm a filmmaker that's going to make a film about Ron Paul promoting the ideas of liberty. And do you know where I live? I live in Libertyville. That's my town. So, spirit of independence. Couldn't be any more perfect than that. So, it's through and through for me. I've lived there for some time now, and very proud of this town. It's got good government locally here. It's very transparent. So, just as a little incidental thing, and my oldest son was playing out in the driveway today. They're just a little race game around our cul-de-sac. And so I've got my big Ron Paul sign in my front yard. And each kid was writing what their driveway was going to be called for this game. And for our driveway, my kid wrote in chalk, and he pulled me out there, and he's like, Dad, look what our driveway's called. And it was Ron Paul Avenue. So I've got Ron Paul Avenue in Libertyville, Illinois.
That is awesome.
So just a little something I wanted to share with you guys. I thought that was to me, that's precious, man. I'm sold through and through on liberty.
Well, just to kind of comment on that, I think it's important, too, to realize that liberty and freedom is something that has to be constantly maintained and constantly looked out for. It's kind of like a hot air balloon. If you don't continually fill it with more heat that lifts it up, it's going to naturally fall. So as we move towards August, November, and January, even and beyond, we have to keep that movement up simply for the fact that once we let go of this, it's twice as hard to get it lifted back up again. So it's like maintaining your perfect ideal body weight. You never want to let go, otherwise it's twice as hard to get there again, and there's that yo-yo effect.
Yep. I speak to some of that for sure. The script speaks to what you just said in the film. I'm telling you, man, I watch your guys' videos and certainly go through all the forums, and you know, when I really have nailed down the concept or understand it to a certain degree, you know, over the last couple of years, I was writing these things down and kind of, you know, blazing them up here in my brain, and I think a heck of a lot of that appears in the film, you know, because the really tough thing is a lot of times with Ron, you know how it is, he's got 20,000 people in the room, he's probably the only, you know, honest guy in the room, and they're all attacking him like vultures. I try to think to myself, if I was in that guy's situation, would I be able to absolutely immaculately deliver the message every time when people are cutting me off and being rude and not asking me a question for an hour, etc. And so it's tough to get certain to explain concepts of liberty to people in a way that they'll understand. You know, and these like little caffeine bursts of information to them that they go, oh, geez, I hadn't thought about it that way. And I'm not saying this film, you know, got everything absolutely right, but if I say something about the Constitution, or if I say something about the TSA, or if I say something about the NDAA, a lot of those are bad things. A lot of times people hit it and it just goes, like, I don't even know what the hell the NDAA thing, you know, that is. So trying my best to, okay, so if I'm going to say that, if I'm going to if I'm going to mention the Federal Reserve, how can I make it relevant to them, to the guy who's not here in the chat room living this and breathing this stuff like we are? You know, I know you guys totally get this. It's how do you make it more digestible for the masses, and that's why I tried really hard to find that delicate balance of, I got to get a marketing hook for people to watch this, and then when they do watch it, I'm going to have to position this in such a way to where if they only saw it one time, they might remember that one line out of the film, and they're like, shit, man, that made a lot of sense. You know, like I get where he was coming from, you know, or where the film was coming from. So, you know, fingers crossed, I got it right. I think I did.
Well, and that's the great thing about what you did is you don't necessarily have to get it right for everybody. You just have to cause enough question within their mind where they then go and seek out the answer themselves. So the fact that you're even raising the question in somebody's mind is going to lead people to the conversion where they know they need to protect freedom and liberty. So even regardless of what your final edit looks like, you've already become a success, Jeremy, because it's going to affect somebody. And you never know. Your video could be the one that gets us the next Ron Paul in 2024 or 2072 or whatever it happens to be. You'd be like, oh yeah, I saw a video years ago that got me thinking about all these things.
I hadn't thought of that, actually, to be honest with you, but that's a very, that made my day to hear you say that. I hope it does, man, because it's, you know, like when I hear when Ron would talk about, a good example would be when Ron would say Austrian economics, to someone who's never heard that term before, man, that sounds wacky. Like, what is Austrian? You're talking about Austria the country? What is he even talking about? So I try my best to shed a little more light about that, you know, because and they are, you're right, they're going to have to go off, and if they're interested, find out on their own, but a lot of times Ron will like have a 20-second chance to say it, and he's like, we need sound money, follow the Constitution, we need to, you know, be done with Keynesianism and the Austrian economics, it needs to be rule of the day, or whatever. They're kind of like, okay, what's Keynesianism? What's Austrian economics? Sounds like he's a smart guy, but I don't know what he's talking about. So I was thinking about those kind of things, of how you could make it a little bit more digestible, you know, for people, because it's so important to, I mean, it perked my interest at some point to want to look further and watching your guys' videos. So for sure, that's where my heart is. That it elicits that kind of reaction.
I think the video idea is probably the best way to do it, because when you can get individuals in a room and they're just sitting down and they're focusing on that video, they're going to be a lot more open-minded to the message that they're listening to, compared, like you said, Ron Paul can be doing an interview with 20,000 people in the room, and it's just a ton of different reporters who are there just trying to pick him apart and not really learn. They're just there trying to make him look stupid and trying to discredit his message of freedom and liberty. When you can actually get a produced video out there to the people, they're actually going to take it and kind of indulge in it. They're actually going to take the time to look at the details that you put in that video, and they're going to be a lot more open-minded to the idea that, hey, maybe this is the truth, and I should look at the idea that, hey, maybe.
Nope. I'm still here. Can you guys?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Is Matt, did we lose Matt's audio?
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, man.
You were on a roll there for a second there with the introduction.
Did I get cut off?
Just for the last part.
But basically, I was just trying to tell you that your video idea is the perfect idea, because it's just a more personal one-on-one thing where like I said, you can have 20,000 people in a room, but they're going to be so close-minded on many issues because they're not going to want to be that person that steps out and does the unconventional thing and thinks for themselves. When you can actually just sit down and be on your own, you're not worried about what other people are thinking about because no one can judge you when you're just there watching the video. In your mind, you know what you're thinking, but it takes a different, more, I guess, self-assured person to go out and actually speak their mind. Many people agree with what Ron Paul says, but it's the media that'll portray it as if it was something that Romney would have said. Now, you could go to any normal person. You could be like, hey, do you want smaller government, less debt, less taxes, less wars, bring the troops home? They'd be like, yeah, that sounds like a good plan. That's why I'm voting Romney. And then as soon as you say the name Ron Paul, they're like, no, that guy's crazy. He can't win. He's unelectable. That's why he's only a 12-term congressman. He's not electable, right? I mean, it's just this term that they give him is being unelectable. It's just the most asinine thing I've ever heard. When you can win 12 times, you're electable. Evidently, you have something going for you. And when you can get down to a more one-on-one personal basis with Ron Paul and his message, that is when the people are going to connect. And that's why we need people like you doing these great things, making videos and connecting one-on-one. Because we're never going to win this thing overnight. It is going to take days and possibly years to get the masses of people awoken to the message. But unless we do what you're doing, it's never going to happen. So that's why I thank you very much, Jeremy, for taking the time out and doing this video for all of us.
Oh, you bet. By the way, the one thing is somebody who's been in this industry from a video perspective, you know, I'm constantly thinking about you know, this digital universe we live in with broadband internet and everything. How my company has to position itself because the perception of video out there continuously changes that more and more people can do it. So I have to be strategic. That's why we have red cameras and upper cameras, because not most people can't get those, and you got to be thinking of these things because everybody's got an iSafe camera now. Everybody has an iPad. Everybody has a whatever where they can film video. Why I'm getting all this stuff is what's really cool about what's happening with you, Josh, and you, Matt, and some of the people out there. And I've watched you guys' stuff. The quality's getting pretty good. You know what I'm saying? And what's great about it, no, I'm serious though, like what I'm saying is at some point soon, give it another, you know, 2 years, 18 months, whatever it may be, to the average Joe, you know what I'm saying, if you put enough time and effort to it, you'll have access to technology that will make it look more than good enough for them to say, this looks like a really nice production. So what does this guy have to say? And it levels the ground. And I saw that with Richter Studios, is most definitely has happened where there's different type of, it didn't used to be that way 7 or 8, 10 years ago, where you had kind of like the old traditional tape-based video, and you know, the old guys who had all the money, they were the kings. You know, there was no way you could compete with these guys unless you had $500,000 to go to just buy your basic setup, and then you're like, that's crazy, you know. So we're gonna have to play this other game of buying very inexpensive technology and finding some kind of way to make that interesting and engaging for a company to want to associate their brand with it. But now here we are, you know, 7, 8, 10 years later, and video has changed dramatically, and it gives us, you know, as the Voices of Liberty, a chance to put some pretty decent stuff out there. You know, when did YouTube start up? 2006? I don't know, something like that. It wasn't all that long ago where it really started to take off. And give it a few more years, and you'll be competing on message and a heck of a lot less on the quality of the video because you'll have access to it. I'm like crazy inspired about that. One other thing I wanted to mention to you guys too, only because I thought it was an interesting story. I don't know if I'm going to get how many chances I'm going to get to talk to the community after and talk to you guys. And it's just one of those things where I thought it'd be kind of neat to share, and how it tied into something I read recently by Michael Schur. The nonintervention.com guy, the former Bin Laden CIA guy. I think he's fantastic. But anyway, I made this movie called Discovering Deer Path. It's a documentary about the town of Lake Forest a couple years ago, and Bill Curtis, who's in Anchorman 1 and 2 with Will Ferrell, but basically who the movie's based around. Bill Curtis is a big Chicago celebrity. He's done a lot of stuff for A&E. But anyways, he's in Anchorman. Well, he and I did that movie together. He did the narrative, and I wrote this, you know, was a writer and director, and filmed for 20 days. It was an awesome experience. Well, I got access to a lot of these wonderful, wonderful people out in this town. It's a very wealthy town, super nice bunch of people. And one day I stumbled across this brother and sister who were like in literally their sister was like 89, he was like 93. These were old timers, you know, and they were just given the perspective of the town because they have a pretty amazing history in this town, and it was celebrating its 150th anniversary, which is why we were making this documentary. And so, anyways, I got access to some pretty heavy-hitting people from a just, you know, notoriety level or wealth level or whatever. And a lot of these guys out there, almost every single one of them, were involved in politics. And I would say probably 99% of them were Republicans, okay? So anyway, I got this conversation with this guy who he was talking about how he was involved big time, you know, back in the 30s and 40s for Charles Lindbergh, who used to have this, I didn't know about this until he told me about it, but there was this political movement that started in Chicago called America First, and it was about non-interventionism. And how they didn't want to enter the theater of war for World War II. And he was the head guy running this thing, and Lindbergh was their spokesperson. And I'm listening to this guy tell me something like, you're kidding me. But Lindbergh was the guy that flew the plane across the ocean and everything. You know, and he's like, yeah, no, that Charles Lindbergh. He's like, and we used to fly all across America warning against the perils of going to war, because this has to do a lot more than just the Germans are bad guys. There's banking interests. There's all these other things that we don't think this is in America's best interest. And we were winning big time ground. I think it had like over 1 million people supporting these guys at its peak. And so Roosevelt saw Lindbergh as his chief nemesis before World War II broke out. It got to be that big of a deal. And ultimately, you know, Pearl Harbor happened, and I remember this guy telling me at that point in time, you know, it was over. We were going to war. There was nothing I could do at that point because people just want me to have this bloodlust thing going. How dare somebody attack us? And the non-intervention aspect was over. And I cringed because I knew there was going to be a lot of, you know, bad that could come from this that we saw. And obviously, I'm not trying to slam World War II. It's just what this guy was kind of sharing with me. But he got to fly all across the United States, and Lindbergh would let him fly the plane wherever they want. He's like, let's go to Indiana. Let's go here. And I'm like, this is totally crazy. Well, then I started doing more research of what Lindbergh was up against in politics. And man, you just got to do a little bit of reading, and this guy was vilified just like Ron Paul is vilified now, big time. I mean, he's called every name in the book, how he, you know, anti-Semitic, the whole nine, about how, you know, he was against all the good principles, and he's a bad guy. And Lindbergh's father was a big-time politician too. I believe he was a congressman back in the early 1900s. And so anyway, then I heard Michael Schur talking about Ron Paul. This might have been 3 months ago, and he's like, you know what? They're going to do to him just like they did to Lindbergh. They're gonna put up such a media filter on this guy. And I thought, man, this is crazy, because I had this conversation with the guy who was actually campaigning with Lindbergh. You know, I mean, I was the luckiest guy in the world to be in the room interviewing this guy when this happened. But for what it's worth, it's one of those stories that I don't know how many people would find it interesting, but I thought it was amazing. And I wanted to just share with the community out there that was one of the most interesting days of my professional career.
That's interesting.
Anyway,
Very interesting.
So, I want to see if there's anything else I didn't,
Did anyone have any questions for Jeremy, first of all?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Jeremy?
Looking down here.
And also, just to dispel this rumor, I'm not dating Julie Borowski. Whoever I'm seeing this all over the place. I'm seeing this on my new video I just put out. They're like, so Matt, I hear that you're dating Julie Borowski. Is this true? I'm like, no, never met the lady before.
I need to talk to you, Matt. There's this script for this film had to change a couple times because of what was going on in the campaign, and I'm like, okay, well that's not relevant anymore. How am I going to do this strategically? You know, new news every week. And actually, there was a brief 30-second segment that, for strategic reasons, I just had to take out, because what I'm trying to do is get the community involved in this piece to some degree. And so I need to talk to both you guys, because there are specific lines in the script that call things out and talk about people in a very celebratory way, in an affectionate way, and I want to do it right. So I'll have to talk to you guys. But that's the part that I think people are they're gonna love, because, you know, it's gonna have high entertainment value, but at the end of the day, it needs to go viral. And there's a huge community out there that I'm still, you know, Josh, I just tuned into your stuff probably about 6 weeks ago. And I'm like, well, how the heck did I not know who this guy was? And I think what it was is I had seen a few of your shows on YouTube, or listened to a few of your shows on YouTube, probably 6-7 months ago, and didn't know that was the same guy. But I was like, but anyways, I've been following you since, and you guys have such a great voice out there, and I mean, you're talking, millions of views that are listening to you guys every single. When you look at how much you have, I'd like to work some of that into the film, and I'm probably in my last few precious seconds here of getting this thing done. So I'm going to hit you guys up. Probably not tonight because I got some family things I got to start with the kids or wait for me. But first thing tomorrow morning, I'll hit you guys up.
Jeremy, I'm going to put my Facebook down below right now in the chat. You see the chat down there?
On the chat. Yes, Jeremy first. Am I looking where everybody's making comments or no?
Yep, yeah, I just posted it. You guys stop posting for a second so it doesn't go away.
Oh, there it is. Oh, okay, hold on. God, I feel like Doug Wead here. He's I'm kidding, Doug. I'm kidding. So this was okay. Got it. I got it. Thank you. Very, very helpful. Yeah, it was funny because I'd never seen a picture of you before. I'm like, this guy's got a great voice, man, but I have no idea what he looks like.
The sad part is, as soon as I do come on camera, everyone's like, man, I thought you were older. You're like some 19-year-old punk. I'm like, no, man, I'm only 23. I'm not that old, but evidently we have a good microphone.
Well, is there any questions out there that you guys want to ask the viewers who are listening to this that you guys would want to justifications, reasons, insights, whatever? I'm happy to talk about it. The only interest I got was a few people had asked about wanted some justification why Bridget, the girl with the flag, why is she wearing a bikini and why is she, have the American flag? I got a few questions about that, which I knew I was going to get. But beyond that, seems like it's been pretty well received, But I'm happy to elaborate if anybody has questions about this. Actually, what I'd like to ask you guys, everybody out there, is it's a 15-minute version, and so I understand the challenges with viral when it's that long, and there's going to be a trailer that'll be, I don't know, 40 or 45 seconds long. Is there a strong interest out there to make, say, you couldn't get all these messages across that were in the 15 in, say, a 3-minute version, but is there a strong interest out there for there to be a 3-minute version? Because if there is, I would try to find a way to make that happen. So we'd love to get people's feedback. No bikinis. Yeah. So looks like people are saying, yeah, they would look for that. Yeah, because Liberty is a goddess, which is pretty sexy, right? That's pretty much where my heart was. But I'm honest about it. I understand that some people want to show this to a pastor or someone who's very conservative, and so maybe there's a shortened version that doesn't have the bikini girl in there, and then people can, and that would be all I'd have to change. I'm fine with that. I just thought that would be a neat way to come out of the gates rocking with something fun. And I have a slight tilt to the youth movement on this. I'm like, honestly, I know that the 60-year-old grandma or 70-year-old grandma some of them might be offended by this, but I do know that there's a lot more out there who are going to be energized by how this thing is being positioned. It's more towards the youth because they're the future of the party, and I want them to embrace it and have fun with this. And, at the end of the day, I want everybody to have a big smile on their face because remember what speech? Do you guys remember which speech that was, Josh or Matt? Where at the end, Ron walked off the stage, and all of a sudden he came back out, and then he started kicking balloons around, and then he kept kicking the balloons around.
No, I remember it, but I don't know. I can't remember where it was.
I have pictures of it actually. It's funny because he's got these special shoes on, the insole shoes, and people always commented whenever I put that picture in the video. I know what you're talking about too.
Yeah, because, and I mentioned that because, oh, there we go. Oops, I hit mute here.
The answer comes in more liberty. Thank you very much.
a police state. Mr. Jefferson's rolling in his grave. And the names and the numbers like 666. Lord, do the gospel on a pan of chips. Save our constitutional rights.
Kind of makes you wonder how much those balloons sold for on eBay.
Well, I love that. I'm so glad somebody put that up. You see that, you're like, it's so nice to see him just kind of let loose a little bit. And he was saying, why don't we have a little fun along the way, right? So when I was doing this film, I'm like, this thing's got to be fun, man. It's got to have a happy vibe to this whole deal. It can't have a conspiratorial slant to it. We're out here to have fun. We're busting our tails, man. And the other thing I want to say, I cannot make any promises whatsoever, but I've worked with a lot of celebrities, okay, and so some of the big ones would be Chris Bridges, Ludacris. You saw the video that I did at my office. I played pool with Ludacris at my office. Super guy, by the way, like unbelievably professional, nice guy, and you almost feel like, seriously, this guy is so low hassle. I almost feel like, am I missing something here? But unbelievably nice. And, Bill Curtis and a lot of other great celebrities we've worked with. And, a couple days ago, 2 days ago, as a matter of fact, I had Shea Vaughn in my office. Shea Vaughn is Vince Vaughn's mom. And as you guys know, Vince Vaughn is involved with the Campaign for Liberty. So one of my goals is I have to be practical about this, and that is prove to people that the quality is there and that you're going to do this in a way that's fun. Yeah, there's just shock value to this thing, but I see ultimately what you're getting at. This was a positive experience. You made a good point. You did it in a fun way. I think then I could start to reach out to people who are sympathetic to the cause, and I've got access to some of these guys, and then I have something to show them. They can trust. They'll trust me more. So it's a process, and so I'm thinking about those things for 2012 plus, and I think hopefully this will be very well received and go viral, and it just makes my case stronger. So if you guys like it, please do what you can to make it go viral and share the links and promote it and give me your feedback and just know that I'm hearing you. I'm reading your emails when this stuff comes in, but sometimes my time constraints aren't as good as I'd like them to be because I do a lot of traveling. But I'm going to do my best, and I'll be honest with people. If I can really do it, I know I'm going to be in Tampa for the festivals, but there's going to be other opportunities down the road. So if we can hit this thing out of the park, I think there's going to be some really interesting opportunities that they step it up even higher on the production scale and resonate with people. If you get star power, man, look out. You know what I'm saying? That's very potent stuff.
It is, and I wanted to address one thing you brought up because I think it's something that we're really seeing as a vital shift in this movement. You said, the movie is geared towards the youth, and that is awesome, and I love it, and I'm going to promote the bejeebies out of this thing. But one of the things we have to realize, too, as a movement, that the youth is anybody that's alive. The nation's over 200 years old now, so everybody is the youth of this nation. And what I'm really encouraged by are the number of people who are in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, who are still going to be voting 2, 3, 4 election cycles from now. And they're waking up to the same thing. I have seen a lot of old people driving Buicks lately with Ron Paul bumper stickers. And that, to me, is in a way a lot more exciting than the youth, because we know we have the youth. The youth is looking out there saying, hey, got it, I love the message. But when you start changing the minds of those 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds who are going to vote next 2, 3 election cycles, that's when you actually start taking control of this. And the establishment knows it too. So when we combine both of that, when we take the youth and the aging, I guess, then we really have a movement.
Absolutely. And I honestly, from my own personal experience, it takes longer, to convince some of the people who've been around a little longer. Mm-hmm. But, man, I'm telling you, they're coming around. I really think the one big sticking point that I personally have seen, so I'm talking about the crowd that's, I'm 41, so I'm talking about the crowd that's anywhere from, 40 to about 55, okay? So I definitely talk to some of the older folks in my family and whatnot, but I'd say that age, I talk to a lot of people in that 40 to 55 range. And I'd say about a third of them love Ron Paul. I mean, I don't even have to convince them. They're like, dude, that guy is the man, I get it. But he's up against a lot, so I don't know what to do here. So give me some advice. Should I write him in or whatever? They're very They get the Ron Paul thing. And then I'd say the other 2/3, basically the other 2/3, I've not heard a single person say that he's, say something really derogatory about Ron. And I'm talking about this age bracket, which is a significant one. These are the guys out there watching, the Glenn Beck Show, or O'Reilly, or Hannity, or whatever. Sure. And the one thing they've seen that they are having so much struggle to get over, and keep trying to think of a different way of relating them, is the war issue. To them, they're like, I love Ron Paul, except for when it comes to dropping bombs, man. And I'm not giving that up because they're out to get us. The bad guys are out to get us, and I can't give it up. But the good news, I'd say, is that second third is hearing me stay on point, and they understand the financial ramifications of continuing to spread ourselves too thin. We're gonna collapse. So it's that last third that I haven't figured out how in the world I'm gonna get those guys to stop hating certain groups of people and wanting to bomb them into oblivion. But that's okay. That's all part of the process, and I'm not staying on it, man. I'm not going to give up on these guys. They're young enough to where they're listening. They just haven't been convinced totally yet.
What we have to look forward to is, without trying to say this and sounding bad, the next 30 years is probably some of the most transitional times I believe our country could go through. Because when these people that you say you can't connect with start to leave, die, basically, it's going to leave us with stupid text message. It's going to leave us with a lot more liberty-minded people, and I think that's why people are moving so fast. That's why there's complete, just open attacks on the Constitution, because they are realizing they are running out of time to do what their agenda is, and they have to know they got to do this fast, because as soon as these next people are gone that are actually going to agree with them and just go along to get along, there's actually going to be a lot of resistance. So that's why they're moving at such a rapid pace lately, and I don't see them slowing down. That's why we need more people like you, like I've said, waking people up.
Let me tell you, for my company, I won't get into the specific numbers, but I can get into percentages. So here's the reality on the ground. So I'm in Chicago. It's a very strong Obama slant here, though that's definitely not so good right now. People are probably still there's a lot of guys still gonna vote for him, but there's a lot of ticked off people that realize he didn't follow through on a lot of promises. So that's good. They're recognizing that. But it's a strong Obama base here, right? The guys here all the time with Michelle. They're shutting down the highways. She's driving with her entourage and shutting down I-94 and whatever. 294 is ridiculous. Anyway, God, I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? It'll come back to me in a second. Sorry, we were talking about with Obama and changing minds. It'll come back to me in a second. Sorry, old man's disease.
Well, you pointed out that even in Chicago we're starting to see a shift. And I think that nostalgia around Obama has kind of tarnished. I mean, here we had a guy who went literally from creating a Parthenon for himself in Mile High Stadium to somebody who can't even draw a crowd when he arrives, and the press is now stopping the coverage of him arriving at the airport because there's nobody there to greet him. So we saw the tarnish come off this guy, and what really disappoints me is the GOP had an opportunity with that. They could have ran Kermit the Frog against this dude, and they could have won. But instead, they went along with the same candidate that they had 4 years ago, and they reminded us he was too liberal to win 4 years ago against the very person he would be facing this time. And I think a lot of people, even if they don't support Ron Paul as of yet, I think a lot of people are waking up to that, and that kind of is an introduction to this entire movement in and of itself. They're starting to say, wait a second, why is the RNC doing this? Didn't they see the tidal wave of conservative values that rode in 2010? Why would they continue to run a candidate who they themselves told us was too liberal 4 years ago? And it opens those eyes, and it allows us the opportunity to kind of lead them to those questions that I was talking about earlier. And once you find somebody and you know what their belief is, if you can anchor a truth to that belief, they'll follow it till its conclusion. And that's really deep, and I teach a class on it, but in a sense, that's all you have to do, and you just have to find those opportunities. You can have your conservative Uncle Bob, who's been voting, RNC forever, and just ask him a simple question. Hey, Bob, isn't this the same guy who you were telling me was too liberal 4 years ago, and that's why I had to vote for McCain? Well, yeah, it is. And just leave him with that. Let him kind of process that and be like, I don't know what to do about this new information, so he's going to go looking for an answer.
You know what? By the way, my old-time disease went away for a second, so I remember what I was going to say to kind of add to some of the stuff you're talking about. What I was going to say was my company. So we meet with our insurance guys, twice a year or whatever, to just talk about our plan, and so there's a lot of conversations about Obamacare, right? And then it gets even more depressing when you talk about Omnicare, and you're sitting there, and so there's I have to provide this to my employees, and last year our healthcare costs went up 73%. That's 7.3, not 3%, 7.3. And you want to talk about some swear words at my office and some very aggressive, reaction. Let's just put it that way. When I found out that this was, reality, people need to get engaged in politics, because that is, it's going to sort itself out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, America, the landscape for America is changing. The government's gotten so big, and the steps that we're taking, what it's leading to, is dangerous. And so I look at that and I say, so how can I, as a small business owner, continue to offer health care insurance when it goes up 73% year over year? And it went up again this year, by the way. It didn't go up 73%, but it went up again. And, when I talk to my guys, who I've worked with for 10 years, these are good people. We use them for a lot of different services. They're telling me what's really going on, and, don't expect it to get better anytime soon. And I'm not trying to, ruin your day here, and to me, that just means more and more money. Well, how can I be entrepreneurial, capitalistic, free market kind of guy and contribute to the American, way of life and innovation and do all these neat things, but continue to deal with this government that's getting so out of control, and all they want is more and more money from me. And what am I getting for it? So it's very frustrating to see this, and that's another big, strong motivator for me is to. It's a very real thing. I can philosophically talk about this, but, I'm seeing it affect my company's bank account or my bank account, and then it becomes very real. So, we lost Josh, or looks like he's trying to get back in.
I think that's a good way to connect to people, the more capitalistic people, the smaller, just kind of home business people. I'm not sure how you started out your business, but just showing them the healthcare costs too, on how Obamacare is just a copy of Romneycare, and Romney is on video saying that. I mean, there's no denying his words. He even says he's glad the president has taken his mold for Romneycare and turned it into Obamacare, and he thinks it could even be better.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because when I started the quick background on how I was a freelance designer and animator for 3-4 years, and then I slowly built up and hired people along with my brother, and we built up Richter Studios, and now we've got 20-some people, working as part of our deal. But at the end of the day, if insurance cost goes up by 73%, I have to go out and win at least that difference to remain the same. And then I have to win over and above that to grow the company. And then what if you have a housing bust, or what if you have whatever? And those challenges too. And you just if you don't, sometimes I think, depending on your profession, you're not as directly affected by these things, and you don't see the realities. And for someone like me, I only make money when I go out and chase it, and I'm running after it to convince people to give it to me. There's no guarantee I'm going to win that money. And so a lot of times you have to have sales quotas and whatnot, but you're like, well, this is where we're at, these are where our expenses are at, and the expense column for certain things is just getting so, it just gets getting more and more challenging, so you have to keep reacting to it. But at some point you're like, are they going to take all the oxygen out of the room? Is that the goal here? So it's that's why I'm involved with this. Got to change it, man.
So did anyone else have any questions for Jeremy, now that we have some time?
Jeremy, are you ANCAP? What does that mean?
Anarcho-capitalist.
So I'm not going to claim, so explain to me exactly what that means, though. I won't claim that I know what that means. In a 1 or 2 sentence thing. Anarcho-capitalist, what does that mean?
Carlos, you should get up here and give your definition of anarcho-capitalist.
Well, while he's government, I don't know which one he was. Well, somebody had asked why I spelled delectable with a K. While we're waiting to get this thing out from Carlos, I spelled delectable with a K. One, to get people's attention. Two, though, if you look closely at the logo, if you go to Facebook, I've got an electable page up there, and it's got the first view. There's an actual logo, for the film. And what we did was we took the L from love in the Revolution logo, and that became a check mark in the box that sort of looks like a K to spell electable. And so I'm directly tying in the Ron Paul Revolution thing into the electable thing. And what I'm getting at is he has the most electable ideas. This is what the revolution is all about, And plus, I just thought it was a good marketing hook to do that. And I am so sick and tired of people telling me how he's unelectable that I want to make that thing go to 1 million views overnight. Who knows what's going to happen with the views, but I was like, I'm going to put it out there everywhere. Electable, electable, electable. Ron Paul is electable because, he's been clowned on so many times. I sit back, and I'm sure you're just as frustrated as I am to hear that because he has the most electable ideas without question.
Oh, by far. By far. It's not even really a comparison between what the American people want and what he represents. There's just a control of the conversation, telling people something other than what is truth. And that's what's so important about this movement and this movie and the film, and obviously Matt's YouTube channel. I'm not that big on YouTube yet, but Matt is. That's the importance of this, because it gets back to the control of this conversation. And we need to control this conversation. We can't let the media do it. We can't let the establishment do it. So however we can get into a discussion which leads people to their own conclusions, that's taking control of that conversation, and it leads people to that same end. And we need to keep that up regardless of what happens in August. And I want to make that very clear, because as Doug Wead was on here saying, we're going to push. Victory is ours if we want it, but we have to go past August. Just like when you hit a ball or you punch somebody in the face, you don't stop the punch right at their nose. You actually aim for the back of their skull, so you punch through their nose. And the same thing is true with this liberty movement. We have to punch through that skull. So keep it up, really.
I'm seeing some people talk about this capitalist thing here, and I'm sure I'm not going to address this. I do want to make one disclaimer, by the way, when I talk about this. I'm definitely involved in politics, and I continue to learn, so there's some terms out there that I'm not as familiar with, to be honest with you, and I just like, okay, what the heck does that mean again? Okay, I got it. How does that fit in liberty? But I'm a filmmaker first, so cut me a little slack. When we talk about capitalism, one of the things I don't know if this is speech or not, they're talking about, not coercive, not by force, and I would fall in that camp of not by force, not by coercion, is I have a lot of friends. This would be the other thing that I hear a lot of my Democratic friends, they can't stand capitalism, they can't stand corporate pigs and all that stuff, and they're very strong anti-big government guys. And I always laugh, I'm like, well, I am too, though. I'm like, well, you're talking about is corporatism. There's a huge difference between the two. And corporatism happens when, government gets in bed with big corporations, and they pull favors for you out there, and they eliminate competition from guys like me, who are in business out there trying to move up the chain, and they make it impossible for the laws. I know this because the types of jobs I do, I have to deal with a lot of government stuff on certain things, and I see all the paperwork, and you're like, what? It's ridiculous, the things you have to go through. So for me, I am not a corporatist, man. I'm for capitalism, more specifically free markets. I believe competition is the greatest way to voice to put your vote out there for something, and I think that most definitely, a lot of people don't believe me when I say it. I'm like, if you let the consumers actually vote the consumer, if it was a true free market, you would never have a monopoly, in my personal opinion. Ever have a monopoly. The only way a monopoly happens is when corporatism kicks in and the guy gets enough money to where he realizes he's going to write laws to protect him so the next big guy can't wipe him out. Well, if they can't do that, you're going to have a lot of competition. I'm just basically rehashing, Ron's talking points. And I see a lot of this firsthand. I'm trying to move up the ladder with my company, been doing that for 15 years, and then you start to realize how certain things are set up, and you're like, that's going to be an interesting one to overcome, because I could see who they're in bed with, and they are trying, so they're going down the corporatist route. Okay, so how do I think innovatively around this one? But I don't know if that answers questions, but that's where my perspective was on that. Jeremy, did you sneak in Paul's great speech like his what if speech or imagine? No, I didn't. You guys are going to think I'm crazy in this one. No, actually not going to think I'm crazy in this one. Because Ron Paul, who knows if he's going to run in 2016, my assumption would be he's not, and this is the end of his political career, right? It would be, as far as he's going to be involved still, but he's not going to run for president again. I was cognizant of the fact that I didn't want to have Ron Paul's imagery in the video, and I'm actually trying to do my best to, I want it to be about his message, and I think if you show Ron Paul, there's tons of videos out there that do that, and I think it would be really neat if you could have a film that talks about his philosophy through and through and through, but doesn't look like it's a big PR vehicle to put his image and likeness everywhere. And I think if the logic is there, like Doug Wead said, and the truth is there, people are going to connect with that. And so I think that's the more important thing here. Don't get me wrong, Ron Paul's name is mentioned a million times in this piece, but I thought from an image standpoint, I wanted to avoid that. If I could, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to. There might have to be one image in there of him, but that's being done deliberately to get people to think more about what's being said versus who said it. You know what I'm saying? So,
exactly. It's the message, not the person.
Yeah.
And in that form, you could actually do the suggestion of an image of him, kind of like a shadow silhouette, a podium with a shadow that looks like Ron Paul. So regardless of who fills that shadow, it's still the same message or some symbolic,
Yep.
It's not my movie, so never mind.
Somebody, it's like I'm careful to ask too many opinions right before something's going to get done. Because there's nothing I can do about it at this point, but it's kind of locked. But the real intent is, I as silly as maybe some people might think I sound, in my heart, I still think Ron Paul can win, and I'll go all the way to the end saying that he can win all the way up to the point to where it's done, and hopefully that means he won. So I'm trying to do this in a creative way where you'll see when you get to the end of the film, there's some things there that haven't been done before that are going to make people go, I hadn't heard it. He's literally saying, Ron Paul, the GOP nominee, versus Barack Obama. I'm making sure people hear that because it just makes it that much more real. Looks like we got Carlos up there now.
Come on, guys.
Is this for the capitalism question?
Yeah? You like the cowboy hat? It's my, I don't know, whenever I feel insecure, I put my cowboy hat on.
It looks good, man.
What's up, Matt? Hey, I wanted to tell you, Jeremy, I appreciate what you're doing out there with this, with this movie. There's a group that put out a movie not too long ago, and I won't mention their name, but they put it out exclusively for pay. They would not release a low-quality, free version of it, and I kept asking them about it, and they refused to talk about it, and they wouldn't respond to me or anything like that. And it's just really cool to see somebody that's got the movement at heart as opposed to money.
Yeah, can I speak to that for a second, Carlos, too? So there's a lot. So I'll just say that in my getting more involved in the community, I've had a couple brushes with people in the community, and I think when I say this, I still think these people have made significant contributions, but I definitely ran across a few people, and we're talking face-to-face meeting type stuff too, where the vibe I got was that there was a business interest here over an interest for about liberty, right? And they kind of, they weren't mean or brass about it, but I'm pretty good at kind of that BS detector, and I was like, I don't like where this person's heart is on this one. It's not really where I'm at. And I understand people got to make a living and stuff, but the problem was it seemed like that was most definitely the motivation. And so in this respect, I want people to, I told because I had to hire all these actors and I have to go through all these release forms and whatnot. And I said, listen, one thing you need to understand is that the movement, the way this is going to work, people are going to download this thing and they're going to repurpose it in a million ways. And no matter what I try and do, I'm not going to be able to stop it. And just so you know, I'm fine with that. I'm not even so concerned about the fact that that's going to happen because that's what I want to have happen. But you as an actor can't sign on to this if you don't realize that that's going to happen. It's going to happen because they all look for these term limits. They say, well, it's a 1-year buyout or a 2-year buyout that you can use my likeness. I'm like, this is a perpetual buyout because I can't promise you that. It's not going to happen. So either you're going to agree to that or you just, unfortunately, can't be part of this effort. So what happened with me was then I had a much smaller talent pool to draw from because actors, the first thing they always think about, the ones who are out there making a living off this, is they got to be careful which brands they associate themselves with because then if something's perpetual, you do something perpetually, you can't then go do an advertisement for Pepsi because they'll never hire you. You're the Coke person. We've seen you everywhere. So, you know, and I'm like, listen, it's you know, you're going to have to make that compromise. And I think what happens is your talent pool gets a little bit younger because the younger people are always looking for a chance to add to their portfolio, but the older people are like, man, this isn't my first rodeo. You know, I got to be a little bit smarter about this. That being said, I still think I got some pretty outstanding talent this time.
Awesome. I can't wait to see it. I've seen the clips and stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey Josh, also your show, man. I was actually listening to it just 2 days ago, the archive of it, and I was telling a friend of mine, I'm like, man, I gotta go. He's like, why? I go, I'm kind of entranced over here. I'm like, I'll talk to you later. I'm like, this is a good show, man. You're distracting me.
Well, good. I'm glad. I hope I'm distracting a lot of people out of that left-right paradigm, and you know, we try to put out a show that's unique and different, and you know, comes from a perspective of logic, reason, and strategy as opposed to political agenda. And we do the best we can, and I know we're growing. We have listeners in all 50 states, 100 countries, and it's just blowing up. So thank you.
Jeremy, there's some people that are looking for contact information from you.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, the one thing I should have said this much earlier in the broadcast. So the best way to reach me would be to send to info@richterstudios.com, and believe me, I will get the email. So Richter is Richter, and then studios.com, and just address it, you know, in the subject line, Ron Paul inquiry or whatever, and then to me, and yes, right there, yeah, info@richterstudios.com. And the one thing I don't need it, but it would be kind of neat to have the diversity. So I don't know if you guys know people, or if the community out there knows people. I'd like to get a bit more footage of crowd shots cheering for Ron Paul, and I specifically looking more for video, but pictures wouldn't be so bad either. You know, to have. If you guys have something that you took, that's your image, you're going to have to sign a release form that says I'm okay for it to be in this film. That's the one thing I'm making sure I'm doing, by the way. I know there's a lot of viral videos of the beg, borrow, and steal. This thing has been done the right way, so everybody's cool knowing that, you know, it's going to be part of this electable thing. I got it. I get it. But I could use some help just so it's not just a few crowd shots that I have, but a bit more diverse, because I've seen so many amazing, this Dennis Ham guy put together a video a little while back that features the UCLA shots, the University of Illinois, the Chico University, all the different crowd shots, and it's just and it shows the numbers, how many people were there. It's really well done. He's a musician, and he might have even created a song for it. So I got a hold of that guy, and he shot some custom footage of the UCLA event, and it's amazing. It's where the guys are up in the tree. You know, everybody's up in the tree looking out there, and so I'm like, I gotta have it. And he's an amazing guy, and he was so cool. He's like, dude, I'm in. Whatever you need, boom, you got it. You know, so that appears in the video that I did. And he pointed out a lot of different places where here's people who create other videos, and I'm like, the toughest thing I've been doing is I'm trying to get a hold of people, and they're not getting back to me. So if anybody out there knows, would like to have their footage in the electable, I will take a look at it, strongly consider it, and I'm looking for that. I'm looking for, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 different sources of people who've been in the crowd, and you can show the grandioseness or the celebratory, you know, obviously there was great crowds. I'm just trying to capture that.
Absolutely. I'm going to get you in contact with a guy that has been at the last 2 big Fort Worth and Austin festivals where Ron Paul spoke at, and he'll be able to get you some really good footage from that. So I'll get in contact, and his is HD, I'm pretty sure, high quality HD. So I'll get him to get in contact with you.
I also have footage from the Madison, Wisconsin visit that he did.
So you're kidding me? Seriously, Josh?
Yeah.
That one was freaking huge, man.
Yeah, there were people on the roof. It was crazy. We let the campaign know that we were going to be there, so we did this little meet, you know, sort of thing with them. And then we stood out in the front and just kind of shot the footage of the people. And there's people on the roof, and it was crazy. It was absolutely nuts. So I can send some of that to you.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to, my biggest thing is, you know, on Wednesday I have to hit the final render, so basically when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm going to send out a bunch of emails to say, how in the world can I get this from you guys? Well, however way we got to figure it out. You know, I don't need much, to be honest with you. It's not like I need 10 minutes of this stuff for the sequence it's going to be in, but I think it's one of those things that makes it real. And I'm not blowing smoke that Ron's obviously got a huge following. his crowds. I mean, can you believe the UCLA thing? I mean, they had these, you got 7,800 or 8,500, whatever it was at UCLA, and there wasn't a single news story pretty much anywhere covering it. Like, it didn't happen. Like, go away. It's back to that conversation with those international dignitaries in the room. We said, we're going to keep you under our foot permanently. And that's right now they're just looking the other way, and they know that this is going on, and they're going to act like it's, it didn't exist. So I want to make sure that the people who do care about this and are trying to find a way to, have their voice be heard through something like this, that yes, it does exist. And I've never seen anything like this. Because in my political lifetime, guys, I became kind of disillusioned with Republicans and Democrats a while back, and I ended up voting for Ross Perot twice. And I'm not gonna claim that I believe in everything Ross. I was a different man back then when I voted for him, but it was the fact that I had a third option, that didn't talk like the other two guys. And so the difference is he was a billionaire of money, and Ron Paul is a billionaire of ideas. And Ron wins out 10 times over Ross Perot. And I don't mean to slam Ross, but that's the reality. And so however we can make sure people know that us four and the 200 people that are in this chat room right now, we're not the only people who've noticed that. These crowds are huge, man. So let's talk expediently about getting that footage. So Carlos and Josh, I'll definitely be in touch with you guys shortly.
Good.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook if I haven't already added you. I think I have. If not, I'll make sure I do. But
okay.
Yeah, I'll get you the guy's info so that you can get that, because that was the same concert that Jordan Page played at, where he just tore it up. If you guys Google Jordan Page, Pink Floyd, man, it's the most incredible performance that you could ever see of his, doing that song.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are a big fanboy of the Liberty musicians, but like Cam and Tatiana and Politic and groups like that, man, I listen to them all the time.
Who's the one that Amy had the big song 4 years ago?
Amy Allen.
Yeah, she's good too.
I would have loved to have her in electable, but I was moving so fast I didn't even figure out a way to get in touch with her. She's been fantastic too.
Mm-hmm. And just like the films, the music also impacts that culture. And when we look at what creates candidates, culture creates candidates. Candidates don't create culture. So the idea that we're now getting the music, we're now getting the media, we're now getting the movies, we're now getting the shows, it's a reflection of the direction that the culture is going. And if we continue that trend, then as we continue to meet election cycles, we're going to continue to have a crop of candidates that get more and more in line with what we have, as long as we maintain the growth and the momentum that we've made over the past 4 years.
Absolutely. Man.
Well, and also, as long as we properly vet these people too, it's not just a one-time process either. It's every election cycle. Look at how they've voted, look at what they've done and how they've acted in the past 4 years or however long it's between election cycles, and decide whether that person's someone we should continue supporting or whether we should look at new options. Because as we often see in Washington, people are easily corrupted, and it happens more than we wish to admit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Everybody talks about, getting these Liberty candidates in there. I'm like, well, yeah, but once we get them in there, we need to continually vet them and make sure that they understand the only reason they have that position is because of their Liberty views.
Amen to that. It's good to hear you guys say that, man, because I feel that way. Sometimes I'm by myself. Is everybody else on the same page with me? Because I want these guys, I want this to change long term, and in order to do that, like Carlos was saying, you got to keep their feet to the fire and keep these guys, let these guys know we're not, going to come back 4 years from now and then do a quick checkup. It's going to be staying on these guys on a week-by-week, month-by-month basis and making sure nothing weird's going on here. This guy's changing his story, or this lady's changing her story, because I want, I'm a proud American, man, and I don't hate government, you know what I'm saying? But I hate the the present form of how it's run, and what people do, the corruption that's involved. That's the part I can't stand. I understand that at a state and local level, every region's going to have its own set of needs, and you're going to have to sort that out. But it's gotten so ridiculously overarching right now that it's financially going to drive us into the grounds. And so many people are still catching up with that part of it. I'm encouraged because I do think there's enough people that I talk to where they do get it, and they didn't seem to get it 4 years ago. So that's good. But I'm with you, Carlos, staying on these guys, not letting up. I love hearing that. Let me tell you, Mr. Wead is. I know you guys have watched a lot of him on, Rachel Maddow and all of these different shows that he's been on. I can't think of the CNN, etc. And every time I've watched him, the big thing I've noticed with Mr. Wead is that the guy is the most studied man. I mean, he walks into a room, he's got his facts ready, and he knows we're depending on which station he's going to, he knows what angle they're going to come at him with, right?
Right.
What's their kind of slant, and what likely are going to be the first few questions, and I'm going to diffuse that right off the bat, and I'm going to control the conversation because, but it's amazing. The guy is truly, it's kind of like, I'm not going to compare him to Newt Gingrich, but Newt Gingrich is a pretty amazing debater. I'm not a Newt Gingrich fan by any way, but Wead has that ability to articulate his thoughts in such a succinct way. It's a gift. And I always say, like, man, Gingrich just got a gift. Too bad his positions are horrible in this city. His record is terrible. But Wead is a master articulator, man. He's amazing. We need more guys like him because you know what? He's a graybeard, and when we're talking to him, there's a lot of questions. And tonight was probably the first time he's going to ask the question. Thank you, Josh, and thanks to Tracy and all you guys for setting this up, because it's the first time it seems like anybody's been able to really come at him with not your standard mainstream media question. You guys are asking specifically, like, Doug, what do we need to do for Tampa? What's going on? What's the strategy here? I understand, there's this Rand thing that's going on, and he's given us some pretty awesome insight. And he's a graybeard, so this guy has been traveled, and he's had a lot of success in his life, and we look up to guys like him. And I get up in the morning, man, and sometimes the toughest thing that I look out for is, who can I be inspired by? And I'm not trying to sound silly, but, Josh, when I listen to your radio show and I see the people you have on it that are going to these festivals, and Matt, when I saw that video you put out there, I'm like, this is what I need. This is my bulletin board material for today. I'm putting it up on the cork board. If that guy believes in it, then there must be something to this, and I'm not crazy. And when I see Doug Wead on TV, the guy comes with an awful lot of, respect, and he's being honest with us. He's telling us, that I did talk to these lobbyists, and there was a different life, but I didn't know that there was a person like Ron Paul out there. For me to hear him say that, for us to hear him say that makes him real, man. And I think that it at the end of the day, then it inspires me to say, okay, I get it. We're all in this. It's going to take time. I'm willing to put the time and effort into it, because there's guys out there who've been around longer than me, who are being real about this whole thing. So that's great that you said that about electable. I hope he's floored by it, man, because we're having a lot of fun with that. And by the way, his name is specifically mentioned in electable in a very fun, affectionate way, and he'll know it when he sees it, and I think he'll have a big smile on it. I got a lot of that in there in this flick. You guys are gonna freak, man. It's definitely very different when you're seeing actors play out the Daily Paul or play out, the concepts of liberty, and so where do they get these ideas from? Well, I got these ideas from Matt Larson. I got these ideas from Josh Tully. I got these ideas from Carlos. So people I'm talking to, I've blogged with so many people with the Daily Paul that I don't even know, and I'm like, this guy should be in politics, and this guy should be writing books, because he's so succinct and good at what he does. And I think he's just, on his part-time, he's stopping by, and he just has some political interest. He just wants to be involved in some way, but he doesn't know if he's a freaking genius. He can really articulate well. So I'm going to write this down, because for the first time I understood this concept now, because, it takes a while to think about the bigger picture and how all these things fit in together. So.
Very cool.
Well, Jeremy, I have to thank you for coming in and for doing this video. This interview was awesome. I actually have to take off, but everyone, it was amazing coming on here tonight. Thank you for letting me come up and actually speak. Again, Jeremy, I really, really, really look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Anytime, just hit me up on Facebook, and I will have a conversation with you.
Yeah, for all three of you guys, I'll be in touch shortly. Just let me get a good night's sleep. The one thing is I've been burning a lot of midnight oil here, because I've got to run a company during the day, and I'm doing this stuff on the side. And I do have my people involved in this during the day, but then I've got other commitments, so my energy level's like, whew, I'm going to make it, man. I'll make it to Thursday, and then I think I'm going to go celebrate fireworks for a week solid. But I'll get a good night's sleep, and I'll be in touch with you guys tomorrow, and next Thursday is going to be off the hook, man. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Thank you.
And then Josh, also awesome interview tonight. You and Tracy did a phenomenal job with Doug, so thank you for that too.
Well, yeah, Tracy did a wonderful job. That was really good. It was a little different not having it just be my show, so that was a little bit of a challenge for me. But yeah, she did a great job. So yeah, it was good, and I'm really glad that he made it too, because this idea that you have somebody who is so involved previously with the establishment GOP. I mean, for goodness sakes, he worked for George Bush. And then he becomes a Ron Paul supporter, and then he becomes a Ron Paul supporter who's not afraid to address the grassroots. That in and of itself speaks a lot to the character of what we're seeing take place. So that's...
He makes my case, hey Josh, he makes my case for people. So when I point out the fact that, a former Bush guy, here he is, this guy's a heavy hitter. I swear to you, I've won 20 people over to Ron Paul in the last 6 months because of Duck Weed, because he's a graybeard. They're taking it more seriously, man. I'm so glad you guys had him on tonight.
Awesome.
I have to do one embarrassing thing before I leave. I think if I didn't leave, I'd probably lose 175 subscribers by the looks of it down in the chat. So, as always, guys, I'm Matt Larson 10. Go Ron Paul. Peace.
Oh, man. Take care, guys.
Have a good night.
Just got to hear it at the end there. Oh, it's awesome.
Okay, so since, if you don't mind, there was a couple of questions that came up that I would like to address, Carlos. Is that cool? All right, so we had a couple questions. I can't remember exactly what they were, but I promised to get to them. So if you're one of those people who I said, yeah, I'll answer that question, please put it back up. What do I think of Iceland and what's going down in Iceland? I know what I've heard about Iceland. I haven't talked to anybody on the ground in Iceland. If Iceland is taking back control of their country from the bankers, then hallelujah, go Iceland. Matter of fact, it kind of looks like a nice place to maybe relocate to, if that's the case. And if it is, that's completely awesome. I would also would you ever consider getting into politics? You know what? I've actually been asked by a party, which I'm sure we can all guess which party that was. I've been asked to get into politics. I've decided not at this time. I'm too young to run for president, so I'm not going to be doing that yet. But in reality, I think with the format that I have, with a show that's growing and taking on, the big boys like Rush and Glenn and Big Eddie and all that sort of stuff, I think I have the opportunity doing what I'm doing to have a larger impact in a way. Because if you think about politics and the political system, I would rather help lead people to the conclusion that logic, truth, reason, liberty, freedom, the Constitution, all these things are great things to hold on, or great things to hold on to. I would rather lead people to that at this point anyway than go to Washington. But you never know. I never say never. If you were to attend only one day in Tampa, what would be the best day? I don't know if that's a question to me, but I would attend all days, and any day that you could attend would be the best day that you could attend. Josh, what radio station and what time is your show? The show is on from 9 to 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday. It's on the GCN radio network. We're the lead-in show for Alex Jones. If you know who Alex is, I'm sure a lot of you know who Alex is. My show is different than Alex's, but we're the lead-in show for Alex. We're on a number of stations from coast to coast. Matter of fact, GCN doesn't even have an up-to-date list, so definitely check your stations. If your local station is not carrying the show, contact them. Tell them, hey, you need to carry the Josh Tully Show. 78% of the population now considers themselves independent. Here's a show that doesn't have a little R or a D after its name. It's an entertaining show, an educational show, so just tell them to get it. I love me some Josh Tully. Well, thankfully, I love me some Josh Tully, too. Otherwise, it'd be... How do I subscribe to the Josh Tully Show? You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Keep in mind, though, the YouTube channel is just clips. We get a lot of comments on YouTube, and we've had about 600,000 views, and it's really kind of amazing, especially when you consider we don't have actually video up there. It's just clips of a radio show. But definitely subscribe to that. We do have an iPhone app. We do have an Android app. All you have to do to get those is go to gcnlive.com. Up in the corner, there's going to be, get the app. So get that app. I know we also are on TuneIn, iTunes, Stitcher. Stitcher has an app for us. Barbara, Josh, did you get your t-shirt? Yes, I did. Matter of fact, I don't have it with me right now, but I'm assuming you're referring to the Alaskan t-shirt, I'm with Stupid. It came yesterday, actually. Otherwise, I would have worn it today, so that would have been cool. Let's talk a little bit about this Rand Paul thing, because Doug Wead addressed it. I know a lot of people are thinking about it. What do we do? Do we go along with Rand? Here's my personal take on it. The GOP and the RNC, they don't like Rand Paul. This whole idea that we can play nice, play politics, and eventually Rand will get the nod, it's not going to happen. Sorry. Especially if the establishment continues to run as the establishment runs. The best thing for Rand to do would have been to say, you know what? Because my dad is in the race, I'm not going to nominate or I'm not going to endorse anybody. And what's really odd about that is we're not asking 99 other senators who they endorse. So the idea that Rand has to come out and endorse somebody is a little ludicrous. I mean, I understand the play there. I understand, if he doesn't come out and endorse them, then he wouldn't have a future in the party. That's not true. I understand that some, great political pundits have said it, but it's simply not true. Because he could just abdicate. He could just say, you know what? I'm not going to support anybody. But Josh Rand said he would support a nominee. You're right. I get that. But the nominee that the entire world assumes he would endorse would be his father. And once his father's out of the race, he could easily have said something to the effect of, my dad was in this race. I respect all candidates who run for office. Lord knows that it's a hard process and it takes a toll on them mentally, physically, and of course their families. Because my dad was in the race, I am choosing this year to just stay quiet and all that sort of stuff. And he said yes, his dad was his first choice, and I get it. That's awesome too. But just my own personal opinion, I don't think the payoff for Rand is going to be as huge as the pundits think it's going to be. What do I think about the Agenda 21 killing in Alabama? I think we need to kill Agenda 21 any way we can get it. Now, if somebody was killed because of Agenda 21, that's completely different. Hello, Tracy! I'm glad you're back. Why does he endorse Romney and criticizes everything about him? That's a great question. There's a whole... you know what? Along this Rand Paul line, I understand the strategy. I just don't think the strategy was as brilliant as it could have been. Now, with that said, there needs to be a little asterisk. I'm not involved in their inside dealings. So take it with a grain of salt. But just from the outside, that's what I'm saying towards that.
I think that Doug really went out of his way to prop up Rand Paul tonight. I mean, he pretty much said why he did it. He said why he did it. He's playing politics, like we all said.
Yep.
I agree with you, Josh, and he should have done, but I guess he's really trying to